Yo, what's up? Welcome to PM in the PM. Pong Soul had to run away right when we're going live, so he's here though, and now we're live. What's up, Pong?
Now we're live. Of course,
Yeah.
we're live. It took me all 15 seconds to close the damn
Welcome
door.
back,
Listen.
host.
Oh my God! PM in the PM is back. Welcome everybody. Pong and Mav in the PM. It is October the 13th, 2022. We were just talking about the weather behind the scenes because winter's coming. Winter is coming. That's right. I am getting down to, we got down to 32 degrees last night, and I just was checking the weather because Mav was curious, and I'm going to get down to 19 degrees on Monday. Oh boy.
Wow.
But what that does mean, folks, it's perfect time for gaming, and that's what we're here to talk about once again, as has been the case for months now. We have another mountain of news to climb and to get to. Some really interesting conversations to be had this week. But first, let me introduce who is already talking. My co-host, the owner of Fun Speculations multimedia conglomerate. That's right, folks. The one, the only Fun Speculation, aka Mav. Brother, what has you been doing this week, man?
It's been an interesting week. A lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, but been playing games still. Been playing a lot of NBA. We dabbled some Overwatch 2. Got to play some of that over the weekend with you. That was fun.
Yep.
Overwatch 2.
1.5.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, other than that, just busy with life stuff, man. And interesting. I'll say it's an interesting week, for sure. But man, I'm still addicted to NBA 2K. I have to admit, I still can't hit tier 100 on clutch time. I hit to like 95, 96, and then I lose 3 in a row and I reset. It's insane, dude. It is ridiculous. I feel like the last game I played on there, like they had like all 95s and 96s that I was trying to play against, and you know how it is with that mode to begin with. It's crazy, but I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to hit tier 100. I'm not gonna stop trying.
Might as well not at this point. Jesus.
Yeah, I think I have like 100 and or almost 200 games into clutch time played already. Now they're quick games, right?
Yeah,
but,
it takes about what 15 minutes.
10 minutes, I think,
10,
per game
10.
on there. But I got about 200 games played on clutch time already. About 150 plus wins, and then like around like maybe more than that. I think I have like almost 250 games played.
Jesus,
because I keep losing in the freaking tier 90s, so it keeps resetting my tiers. I feel like over half of my losses have come in this tier 90 phase. Wow. It's where it's gotten ridiculous because I think it's a Hall of Fame difficulty, and it's already kind of like a rigged mode to begin with, so it's just insane. But I kind of
like 40 hours into clutch time already.
Probably, maybe even more. I'm addicted to that mode, dude. I absolutely love it. I actually kind of like the difficulty of it because I feel like a real sense of accomplishment when I beat it. It's like my answer to a Souls-like game, right? I reset my progress if I do bad, and then I have to start all over again. You know what I mean? But I understand basketball.
Should be a tweet. That should be a tweet that you put out. Is NBA 2K clutch time is Souls-like.
Is my Souls-like.
Just see what people say.
It is pretty much. It gets harder and harder the more you get through.
Yep.
And then like if you do bad for a little while, it resets your progress to a certain level, and you have to start all over again. And then you got to try and improve things to get good enough to be able to progress. 100%. I have been getting lucky with my cards a little bit. I'm building quite the squad, bro.
You should have after you spent a lot of money.
No, I didn't spend that much. I didn't spend that much.
But maybe not compared to your Madden days, but come on.
Yeah, not compared to my Madden days. Those were ridiculous. I can't believe what I did back then.
Second job type money.
That was like, things were going really well at the time. It's like, this is what I'm doing. I'm just having fun with Madden, and then it's like, then I ended up hating it. Like, what did I do? Why did I do this? This is good times though. That's cool. I want to go ahead and hit up the super chat because Rain G4 hit us with a $2 super chat. He said he's sliding through. Appreciate you, Rain. Thanks for
stopping in.
Yeah,
for sure.
Also, we have another $2 super chat from Jigga J. Appreciate you, Jigga J. Says Xbox to Sony and CMA. You're gonna get these hands. But how you been, Pong?
Yeah, not a whole lot of time to game.
Yeah.
Obviously, just been working a ton and real life stuff. So just a bunch of stuff going on, just curveball after curveball.
Yeah.
But we were still here. But yeah, we got to play Overwatch 2 last week, 1.5. Simply could have
Yeah.
been an update to Overwatch the original, but they chose to make it number 2, make it free to play. But there's still things to fix. Blizzard in 2022. I can't. You're only one of the world's largest publishers, man. Let's get shit together, huh? But I heard they're gonna do double XP and give away some free skins for all the troubles. So that's always nice when they do something like that. But yeah, no, we had a great time in Overwatch 2. You know, and it plays really well. I mean, again, I played some Overwatch on PS4. I was never the biggest Overwatch fan, but I certainly played some on PS4, and hopping back into it was kind of like second nature. So, you know, it felt really good. So we had a great time doing that, and then I got caught up. I tweeted it out earlier this week, but I had a bunch of stuff going on in the house, so I was in and out of gaming, so I wasn't hopping on multiplayer with you guys at all. But wound up getting caught up in and was unexpected in Medieval Dynasty. Out of the blue, this dropped in the Game Pass last week, and I had popped it in, I downloaded it, and tried it. And in first-person mode, even for me, and I usually don't have problems, it was unplayable with the 30 frames. It was, oh my god, this hurts. So I was gonna actually uninstall it, but then I had so much going on. I was trying to find a game I could just pop into and pause and pop out and whenever I needed to. So I popped that back in again, and then I found out that there was a third person mode. So I popped it in a third person, and a whole different experience. Actually plays really well in 30 frames. I had zero issues with it. It's got a ton of pop in stuff going on, and it's supposedly Series X and Series S badged, but that's not the case. I mean, this is not that, but the devs have come out, the publisher have come out and said that they are working on patches and they're going to be updating it and fixing it. So I can't wait to see that. But it's a strategy. For anybody who doesn't know what it is, it's a survival / town management type game. So you start out as this kid, you gotta build your first house, so you gotta go collect resources, all the normal stuff. It's in a medieval time frame, obviously, and then you gotta start bringing people into your town. You gotta build houses, you gotta make that decision, you gotta get a wife, you gotta get a kid. And what can wind up happening is you can turn your town from a small town into a much bigger town, into a city, and then eventually into a kingdom. And once you die, as long as you have an heir, you get to take over the heir. So you get to take over as the kid. So really cool game, though. I just got addicted to the loop. Not, survival games at their core are all the same, but each one has kind of a different loop as to how you're collecting resources and stuff. And for whatever reason, this one just clicks. And I got addicted to the resource collecting. I got addicted to the running across the map. I mean, you can't even swim in this game. You just walk across the water.
I feel like it's probably because it's more of like a almost like a third person action or first person action RPG style, like
some way.
Because you play it, it kind of feels like some of these older school RPG games, like a Skyrim or like a Two Worlds. You remember that stuff like that, right? Except you're going around collecting things to build stuff.
Right, correct. And then there's still quests involved, and there's all this stuff, and a lot of it's fetch quests, but you can set up traps for animals, the hunting. I mean, they actually allow you to chase down some of the animals. If you hurt them, if you shoot them with an arrow in the right spot and they're bleeding, you can actually run down a deer, which may not be realistic, but it doesn't make the survival aspect so ridiculous that you're like, oh my god, this is such a chore. Like, oh my god, it's not like that at all. So you got a whole skill-based system that you can level up in, and you can add to your skills and all that good stuff. So that's been awesome. So yeah, I went from having no village to having a 5-building village. And there's a bunch of settings too. I should let everybody know too. You don't have to play like the standard normal way. They give you a whole list of options where you can kind of customize the game. You can turn off hunger. You can turn off, drinking, thirst. You can dictate how quick the seasons go by. You can turn off the building limitations because they have building limitations until you get to certain points in the actual questing. You could turn those off and build up as much as you want to right away. So The only thing I did was change the seasons to longer. I changed to 30 days, knowing full well that I want to have as much time as possible to prepare for winter. Because if
you learned that from experience.
Yes. So I turned it up to 30 days. So I'm just taking my sweet old time, but having a great time. But yeah, that's been it for me this week. I played around with a little bit of Proteus. You know me. I hop in.
That game's awesome, dude. I was streaming that.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's like really good.
Yes.
There's a lot of options in there too for the visuals and stuff like that.
Yes.
So you can kind of make it look more new if you want, or like I was streaming that the other day. I was like, wow, this is pretty dang impressive.
The levels
gunplay is awesome.
Well designed. Yeah, the gunplay is awesome. The levels are well designed. Like all of it. It's just old school Doom.
What I said when I was streaming is I want Gearbox to get with that dev team and have them make a new Duke Nukem game.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty. That's actually a pretty good idea. Actually,
I mean, why not? It's a small, it's an indie team, I would assume, right? So get publishing deal with the Gearbox to do Duke. If I was one of those like teams that had these IPs like that and you just kind of sitting on it, I would be looking out for some of these games. Also, you could go to like the devs of Metal Hellsinger, which is another solid one that just came out. It's obviously different with the whole rhythm based gameplay on that, but I want to go back to Overwatch real quick because I just gotta say that game has the strangest glitch / bug I've ever seen.
Are you talking about the achievement one?
in a game. Yes. And it is crazy. It's like, okay, so for those that don't know, in Overwatch 2, if you get an achievement, it just kicks you from the server in the middle of the game. It is the craziest thing. Automatically, just like that. Achievement unlocked. Boop. Disconnected. It's insane. And that's been that way since launch on Xbox. So, like, that would usually normally be like a quick day after patch type situation, that like a quick fix, but for some reason it's still happening. Like my daughter's playing last night, she got an achievement and she was like, what happened? She's doing good. And I was like, oh, did you get an achievement? And yeah. And I'm like, okay, you got kicked because you got an achievement. Good job. Stop playing so good. We got to make sure we suck enough when we're playing Overwatch so we don't get disconnected from the game.
Stupid. I don't know if you saw, but I think it was Benji Sales. Shout out to Benji. I think it was him. If I'm wrong, somebody in chat correct me, but I think he posted that he wound up getting 3 achievements in one session, and it wound up banning him. They temporarily banned his account.
Wow.
Yeah, because the system thought he was quitting.
Wow.
Yes, that's freaking awful. Like I said, Blizzard, one of the biggest game developers in the world in 2022. Come on, man. Come on, Blizzard. Come on. It's not this difficult. Oh my God. There's been it is a weird one. We were playing, who were we playing with? We were playing with Steel and who else were we playing with? Oh damn. We were playing
Jasper, Psycho.
Jasper, Psycho.
We also played with Jordy for a while.
Yep, Jordy dropped in from Xbox Era. Shout out to the guys over at Xbox Era. Jordy did jump in. That was cool.
I think Kate played like one match or 2 matches with us. Yeah.
Kate popped in.
Yeah, we had some fun though. We were playing a lot, dude.
We were playing a ton. Yeah, we were playing a ton. And we got, the other thing is, let's warn everybody, we're never going to live this down because Mav has put up such a big stink over it.
I know what you're going to say here.
So we're going to hear about this constantly from my brother from another Steel.
Yeah.
But let's put this out there for people who don't know. If you happen to be teamed up with somebody, because it is cross-play, somebody who is playing on PC, just be forewarned that you will be in PC servers every single match.
Yeah.
Period. You are in the PC pool. So if you've got 4 people on console and 1 person, Steel, is on PC, guess what? Everybody gets to play against PC players. So yeah, that's something. But Mav made a big deal out of it.
I was not. I was messing with Steel, trying to give him crap. Just noticing, wow, we were winning all those games earlier, and all of a sudden we're not winning anymore.
Let me say the challenge did ramp up. It did ramp up.
The challenge ramped up, but I do feel like some of the whole like cross-play thing is a little over.
Oh, it's overblown.
Overblown. Like, because there's a lot of PC players that, I mean, we won a lot of matches against the PC players too.
Yeah, we
like,
crushed
you know what I mean?
A couple matches.
But it was just, I think because a lot of the players we were playing against in the Xbox lobbies. Just I don't know. There is definitely a level thing there, but I think it's just based on like the type of players you're playing against. You know what I mean?
For sure.
The skill
For
level.
sure.
There's a skill. And I feel like there's. It can be overblown. A lot of people use it as an excuse too. You know what I mean? But like, I feel like there is some truth to it. It should be always an option. But when you're playing with a PC player, you know that makes sense. You know what I mean? So, I would much rather play with a PC player, and be able to play with them, than not even have that option at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So like, it's for me, it's well worth it. And the way they do it in Overwatch actually is really, really fair too. Because if you don't have any PC players, you automatically get put in Xbox lobbies. You know what I mean? So, I think it makes a lot of sense the way they do it. I just was messing with Steel because I noticed we started losing a bunch of matches, and watching the gameplay back and how like some of the players were playing. I was like, oh my god, these guys are on a different level. But like Jasper still dominates every damn game, and he plays on console on a controller, right?
Yes.
And he's getting like more kills than anybody in COD and Overwatch and all that stuff. It just depends on the skill level of the player. Ultimately.
No, a lot of it is skill level.
Yeah.
When we went up against a couple teams, you could obviously tell we're I mean, they playing together.
The right
strategy.
The right team build. They're probably Overwatch veterans more. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So,
and that's to be expected, right? So, but even Jasper was pointing out when they showed some of the gameplay, play of the game stuff, that he was like, dude, look at that movement. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, some of the guys are insane. They are.
The 180 spins and shit, like how quick it was.
Because like the sensitivity, the one thing, there is an advantage of an elite level like PC player versus I think an elite level console player, just with the sensitivity aspect of like having that full motion control with the mouse. But the majority of players you're going to play against on PC aren't like that.
No, and Overwatch has very light aim assist. It's not.
Yeah,
I've seen some people complaining.
I didn't notice too much of a difference between the two.
No. So, but that was our weekend. We had a great time though playing Overwatch for sure.
I know Steel ain't gonna let me live that down though, because that was
he's never. Every time we jump into a party now, it's gonna be like, oh, you sure you guys wanted to play with me? Are you sure? I'm on PC. You guys want me to quit out right now? That's what it's gonna be. I love you, Steel. Listen, Mav, we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we do.
Got a lot. Right before the show, I went through and sent out all the links to the news articles that we've been DMing all week. So we have them all here. And man, oh man, it is a lot again. So where do you want to start, Mav? Where do you want to start? I want to start with some lighter stuff before we hop into, obviously, more ABK conversation.
Yeah. I want to say this. So, you know, obviously, I will start with some of the smaller stuff, but I've seen some conversation with some people out there and stuff, and rightfully so. Like, some people are sick of the whole ABK thing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, and I get it. You know what I mean? I get it, because it's like the whole acquisition talk beforehand, when like we kept speculating about who's going to get acquired or whatever, and then we're like, hey, why are you even talking about this? Like, blah, blah. Well, then Activision Blizzard was announced to be acquired, right? Bungie was announced to be acquired by Sony, and all these other things happened after people were already getting sick of the acquisition speculation, right? But I think here's the thing: like, even though the conversations may seem like consistent because we're constantly talking about some of the same stuff, I feel like we're in a time period that's like historic in a way in gaming. It's not going to come around very often. In my entire life, where I've been following gaming news and everything, we've never been in a period like this before. You know, we've obviously seen huge mergers and huge deals, like when Activision and Blizzard merged to begin with, and the
only other thing I will say, Mav, that compares, is the switch from cartridge to CD.
Yeah, that was a big deal. I was too young. I think I was like 12.
Yeah.
You know, when that happened.
I was an adult.
Right.
I was an adult. That was a big thing. But we didn't have social media and access to news like this at all. I wasn't talking to people in the community from all over the world. Like none of that. So this is different level for sure. Yeah,
there's so much stuff happening in the industry that's bigger. It's like the whole industry's changing in a lot of ways, and like this is the biggest deal that's ever happened in gaming, right? And it's facing so much scrutiny, and all these documents are being released to the public, and you get to see things you never got to see before, direct conversations and challenges back and forth with the business models of these of these publishers and platform holders and big tech and regulators and all this stuff, and it's just fascinating to get a glimpse into this world. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
And I'm just saying, like, as our channel, like for ourselves, like we're gonna cover this every step of the way, because
Right.
this is maybe not gonna happen again as big as this. Who knows? Maybe it
Mhm.
will, but if not, then like I feel like it's something that I want to be invested in this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know that some people get sick of the conversation because you want to hear about more games and more different things, obviously, right? But I don't know. I don't get sick of it whatsoever,
Right.
man, because this is juicy stuff each and every week, and seeing these companies talk about this stuff is pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, as I talked about today on Boxenberger, because Wandering Dutch put it out there publicly that his channel won't
Yeah,
cover this
which is
until the deal
fair.
is
I mean,
done,
completely
which
fine.
is,
Yeah,
yeah, I gave him a hard time. I said, oh, I
yeah,
said, but I give you,
yeah, yeah,
I give you respect
yeah,
for the pledge for sure. But to me, like Mav, this is gold. And like I said on Boxenberger today, this is corporate on corporate violence. You don't get
yeah,
to see this ever in any industry, but especially the video game industry. The closest we ever got to this is Sega versus Nintendo back in the day. But all we really got until recently, when there's been documentaries and stories have come out. Back then, we didn't have access, like I said now. So back then, the most we got to see was advertisements back and
yeah,
forth. That was it. Like Mav was just talking about, this top secret industry is so closed lipped, so tight with their information, that this is really a treasure of getting a behind the scenes look as to actually what goes down when two companies are feuding like this, when two companies are on opposite sides and really see things from different perspectives, and we get to like their internal thinking. Like that never happens in the game industry. So it's absolutely
yeah,
fascinating time. And like Mav said, right now, this is the biggest deal ever in gaming history. It's the biggest deal for Microsoft as a corporation, for God's sakes, let alone just the gaming industry, but it's the biggest move that the industry has ever seen for one company. And like Mav said, the way this industry is changing, this is a transformative time period in video games. We are moving into the digital age very quickly now. It's been transitioning for a while, but we're seeing Xbox especially make huge steps towards a whole different future for us as gamers. And that's going to change forever. Not saying that's 100% guaranteed success, of course not. But at the same time, that's a huge step. I mean, it's a huge period of time that we think is important, and obviously that we're engaged here with it is because this is so interesting from a
hmm,
business side, from a chess move side, like how all this is going to go down. This is crazy. And
yeah,
it's, again, if you're tired of it, totally do understand. Again, we're going to talk about games too. Me and Mal. We talk about games here too. We talk about all the other stuff as well. But the ABK deal is just too big to ignore. We're not going to rehash stuff, but when new information is coming out weekly, got to talk about it.
yeah.
It's
And
just
we've been like getting that weekly the last
yeah,
like
drop.
3 or 4 weeks, bro, and it's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
crazy.
it is.
So yeah, but I feel like it's something that's important for me anyway. If you were to tell me that all this stuff was not even on my mind before
Right,
I started this channel, right?
right, right.
And it's like, wow, like we started at the right time, I guess, because the news and gaming is like exploded like
Yes.
crazy, and I was happy to talk about normal stuff, you know what I mean? But like this is nuts, and
It is.
it's like if you like gaming news, it's like constant Christmas
It
with
is.
this right now. It's pretty crazy. I gotta before we also get started, Pong, I gotta
Yeah.
say one thing.
Yeah.
So the other day I was streaming, right?
Okay. Okay.
And I was decided to turn on my PlayStation, and I wanted to progress
I
my
know where you're going.
my God of War. Right? I was like,
Yes.
I want to see how far I can get in God of War, because Ragnarok's coming, and the last trailer they had me hyped. So I try and launch the game. I launched the game, and all of a sudden there's only one option that says new game, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now? I was like, what's going on? So like what happened to my save, right? So then I go and look in my saves, and there's only like 4 saves on my entire console, and it's for like this one time when I was streaming, I was just trying out these PS Plus premium games, right? And those were the only saves on my local drive. And I was like, where are my saves? And I remembered that, I had decided that I would take my credit card off so that way, and I didn't re-up on the PS Plus premium, right? Well, like when I did that, it didn't re-up on Essentials either, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I decided, I'm not playing enough online with Sony or whatever to like PlayStation right now to make it worth it. And I realized, oh shit, yeah, cloud saves are behind the paywall, but I didn't know I didn't have my saves on my hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
So
you got to manually move them back and forth.
So I was like, what the fuck is going on? So then I went to go see, okay, can I get my cloud saves and at least download them? Yeah. No, there were no, if you click on the cloud save thing, and it's just fucking completely nothing there. I'm like, oh my God, PlayStation is holding me hostage. I feel like I got to pay the protection money right now to get my saves back. You know what I mean? It's like, that was insane. And I was streaming when this was going on. I was like, Chad, what the fuck is going on? So then it's like, okay, I'm just gonna fucking re-up Essentials. There's too much time spent. I have like all my PS4 saves, all that stuff on there. So like, all right. So I re-up it. I launch it again. It's like, it's still not there. I'm like, oh my God. So then I was like, okay, well, I gotta go, I guess, download it to the console. But I'd already done that before because I was playing the game. Nope. Anyway, so I put that tweet out there, and then all of a sudden, this like PlayStation fanboy army comes out and says I'm lying.
Bro,
I don't understand. Like I was fucking streaming. I'm not lying. Like maybe I had a user error and I didn't have a setting set properly or something. I don't know. But my saves were not on my PS5, and they were like, you must have deleted it just to like make a video, just to do that. Or like, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. No, I go and delete all my saves on purpose. Ridiculous. Anyway.
And then spend money to get them back.
And then I have to, screw myself, and then I have to spend money to get my saves back. Yeah.
Oh,
anyway,
it never ends. It's
absolutely ludicrous. The defense mechanism from that group is absolutely insane. Even one person went as far to go, I was going to help you, but then I saw what kind of account you have and what kind of channel you have. So I'm going to see myself out. I'm like, oh, okay. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Just petty, bro. Just petty.
Like, what? Okay, thanks, dude. But there were a lot of nice people that helped me. It was like, hey, you make sure you have this or whatever saved. And so I need to do some work and make sure I get that shit right, because if this ever happens again, I don't want to get screwed. Yep. So that was just a crazy thing. I just need to get
lucky it hadn't been months. Because if it had been months, you'd lose them all completely, like I have.
I am lucky because I could have been.
PS5, all my PS4 is gone. So
it's just so like behind the times on that shit. Can they just like? Maybe it's because I get so used to how Xbox operates. It's because it's been that way since 2013.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You just wherever you play, no matter what, like your save is there.
Yep.
No matter what, like it doesn't matter. Like
the only time you had to manually upload them was Xbox 360.
Yeah, when the cloud saves were invented.
First invented. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
That was the only time, which I didn't do back in the day because I was like, I'm never going to use this cloud.
So I have to like reverse my brain when I'm playing on PlayStation to like 10 years ago and how it worked back then. Right. Okay, go back in time.
Go back in time. It's not simple anymore, Bav.
2012, how did cloud saves work? That's how it works on PlayStation. I got to remember that. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
It's crazy though. I saw your tweet and I was like, oh no. Oh, I thought you had junked it months ago. I was like, oh God, he lost everything.
Yeah, no, I got it. Luckily it was only like a month, right?
Yeah.
So
because I think it's 4 months, I think is the max before.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And as apparently Nintendo operates the same way, but like with Nintendo, I don't know. I don't even know if I've ever used the cloud save feature on there or whatever. Right. But like when you switch from a PS4 to PS5, you got to do that. You got to make sure, So anyway,
it's terrible.
It sucks.
All right, before we get down to business, let's shout out some chat because we've got 100 people in chat already. Listen, y'all. Sorry about last week again. I'm gonna be here all day. Okay, so I'm not going anywhere. Hopefully, knock on wood. I got a wood desk, so
I just got a
knock out wood.
notification that there's going to be maintenance in your area, Pong.
Yeah, I went down at JR DualSense. Is that how they
Yeah.
signed it? Yeah, okay, great. No, we're not going to have that happen again. So I'm going to be here, but great to see you all again. Again, thank you all last week for your patience. I was happy to see Jasper and Psychonauts hop in and help Mav out finish the show, but I missed you all last week. So we got John Wolf in the chat. We got AB in here. Def Leopard, brother, what's going on? Razor NZ from, of course, New Zealand, stopping on by. It's afternoon time there. Have a good one. Marlesco, what's going on, my friend? It's Timmy is showing up here as always. Talos Ray, it would not be a chat without you. Thank you for being here. Lover God, great to see you. And I love that you use the LG symbol. That's freaking amazing. UK Lad, what's going on, brother? You know what it is. Great to have you here. Depka, what is going on? Siki is in the house. How y'all doing? General Spartan 27, what's going on, brother? Brother Nick's showing up. As always as well for us. Go Po, appreciate you being here. Jason, Max, great to see you in here. Calarie is in the house. What's going on? Vik The CLiCK, what's going on, brother? We got Toolman 55 dropping his name in here. Of course, actually guy, Lore Master Jasper, the sweaty one himself, stopping his game time to say hi to us in the chat. Thanks, Jasper. Appreciate you, brother. Spider-Man 356, always dropping the hellos. Appreciate you as well. Andrew Cullinane, what is going on, brother? Deccaddo is in the house. What's going on? I saw a bunch of you showing up to World of Gaming over on Boxenberger's channel today. That was awesome. Appreciate you all and all the support you give. Kaitlin, the beautiful Kaitlin, is here as well. Good to see you. Tony Grasso is dropping on in here. Talking about Scorn, I think. But NZ trip. Oh, yeah. You might take an NZ trip for Scorn. Oh, it is available via the NZ trip. Oh, interesting, man.
What Scorn is?
Yeah.
Like right now?
Yeah, he said you may know already, but no NZ trip.
Oh, no NZ trip.
Oh,
okay.
Sorry, Tony. God, you had me excited for a minute. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Polly Baba, what's going on, brother? Tarquin Byrne, what is going down? Thank you for being in here. RSJ fan, great to see you in here, my friend. Thank you so much for saying hi. All you lovely supporters of Fun Speculation, great to see you. And of course, we got somebody, I'm assuming it's Farquaad, showing up as named Ping Solus. I'm not sure if that's you, Farquaad, but Ping Solus, thank you very much. I appreciate you. As always. Shizno Elite, great to see you in here, my friend, as well. Thank you, one and all. All right, Mav, we got business to get down to here. Let's start with some smaller stuff, some fun ones here, Mav. Let's start with some fun ones. Let's start with one that people might have missed this morning, but you know what? The great part about having a podcast is you get to talk about stuff that you're interested in. Not all the time does it have to be the mainstream stuff.
That's right.
Look, doesn't. I get to talk about what I want to talk about. And I know Mav's excited for this little bit, even though he's given up on these games. But we did get some cool news today. Persona 3 and 4, for all of you who don't remember, we're getting 5 Royale, October the 21st, I believe it is. We're getting Persona 5 Royale, but then they announced that Persona 3 and 4, which are also coming to Game Pass, are going to be launching in January. So we are going to have the collection of Persona games. Yes, there's still some missing in there. Yes, I wish they would bring some of the older ones back. The Shin Megami Tensei especially, I wish they would bring over. But this is a start. So we're getting 3 and 4 in January. So it is going to be a Persona holiday season for me, for sure. But we got news today, and this is going to be via Games Radar, that Persona 3 and 4, the re-releases are actually going to be native to Series X and S and not native to PS5. PlayStation owners are getting the PlayStation 4 version. Now, this could be for a variety of reasons. We know that Sega and Xbox have partnered up. They've got things going on. It's one of the reasons why Mav and I have said from the beginning that partnership, that the business partnership that they announced to help Sega create this big, massive cloud game that they're working on and the meta, whatever they're going to do, was a bigger deal because we do believe that it opened a door at Atlas. We do believe that part of that was this Atlas stuff finally coming to Xbox. So it could be a part of that. Or it could be that they had to create Persona 3 and 4 from the ground up for Xbox, because there was never a version of that. So since they were making it, they made it native to series consoles, right? And maybe the PlayStation is just getting the older versions. There's a lot of different reasons you could go here. But whatever the case may be, as of right now, Games Radar is waiting on a response from Atlas to, they asked them why there's no PlayStation 5 native version. Maybe this has to do with Sony's whole next-gen tax thing. Maybe they didn't want to give the upgrade, right? There's a lot of different things that could be happening here. But the point of fact is if you're playing Persona 3 and 4, you're going to get the best experience on Xbox, which is crazy to say after decades of Atlas ignoring Xbox. For the most part, there's been a game here or there. We get the best versions on the series consoles, which is fantastic. Mav, what'd you think about this news today, brother?
Yeah, it's interesting, dude. I was trying to figure out why, because like it's the opposite of the past in a lot of ways, right? It's like, is this Earth, or what world are we in right now? I'm confused. Seems like some kind of news that would have happened before. You know what I mean? The opposite. It's just a big deal in the first place that those games are all coming. You said I'm done with Persona. Why? What did I?
You Persona 4 Golden. Why did you quit?
No, Persona 5. You mean?
No, Persona 4 Golden. You said you quit that one.
Did I? I said I bought Persona 5 twice.
You did,
right?
But you also said that you quit Persona 4 Golden back in the day because of the school sessions.
Oh,
you said you hated the school sessions.
No, I think that was Persona 5. That was Persona 5. I bought it twice. Yeah, that was.
So you've never played Persona 4 Golden?
I have. And
Did you beat it?
I stopped playing that for the same reason.
Thank you. What chat? Did you just see what he did?
Okay. But now I'm going to say I bought Persona 5 twice. Here's the thing.
Right.
The combat in Persona, I freaking love. I love the characters. I love a lot of things. But with Persona games, where it loses me is like the teenage drama school stuff. You know what I mean? Where you're constantly like talking to teachers and classmates, walking around from point to point, just like talk. Same reason
part of Persona.
Same reason Fire Emblem Three Houses lost me a little bit, right? Where I love Fire Emblem games. Like I love the grind aspect of the games and like the core RPG elements, but like I don't necessarily want to hear all the like gossip and spend like 30 minutes inside of a school going point to point talking to people just to get back to the action, right? So Persona lost me in some ways there. But I still love the overall gameplay arc of the combat system, right? It's one of the best. So it's kind of like a love and hate thing I have for Persona. I completely get why it's as popular as it is, and it's like something that I really, really want to love, but it's something I always dive back into and end up like not finishing because I get bored in those sections. Right. Mm-hmm. Like when I get back to like, okay, cool. Yeah. When I go beat the dungeon or whatever it is, beat the boss, and then it's like back to that. I'm like, oh, I'm doing this again. Yay. I get to do this for a while. And the other thing with Persona 5, there's this whole thing with the subway, and you go in there with like like a bus thing, and you go around and you fight all these characters in there too. And that wasn't as interesting as the actual like dungeon where the boss fights are and stuff. So there's certain aspects of Persona that I love and certain aspects of it that I don't like. Right.
Okay.
So it's like, I wish it was like the perfect game for me, but it's like halfway the perfect game for me, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I do like it. I recommend everybody trying it though. I did not ever play 3.
Yeah.
So
it was on PSP. That's Persona 3 Portable. So
right.
It's on PSP.
Yeah, that's probably why.
Not a lot of people got it.
And Persona 4, I don't remember how far I got, but I will say this, right? The story that I remember playing in 4, I enjoyed more than the story in 5.
Yeah. And I haven't played 5 yet though, so I can't say, but Persona 4 Golden by far is the best game out of the series.
Right.
So for me, and that goes back to Shin Megami Tensei. Shin Megami Tensei has some fabulous stories. But Persona 4 Golden is considered the king. That's why this is such a big deal. Yeah. If people don't realize it, you couldn't get Persona 4 Golden anywhere except for Vita until they brought it to PC. and it still had never been on consoles. No Switch, no nothing until now. Like this is people consider Persona 4 Golden even after 5 came out. 5 was much bigger mass appeal. 5 blew up popularity wise. But if you talk to people who've been playing Shin Megami Tensei and Persona series, a lot of people will point to Persona 4 Golden as the height of Personas. So it's just great that everybody's going to be able to jump into this game and see it. The big deal for me with Personas is, and it's Atlas games in general, what makes them so great is the character development, is the relationships. That's why, Mav, like I laugh at you, but I totally get it. I understand why. I mean, I have games like that too, where I just drop off because I'm just not interested in that stuff. But for Persona, it is so well written and so well done that those relationships are a big part of what makes these games so popular. So, there are going to be people who try this for the first time and are like, no, this is way too much reading. This is way too much back and forth, like you said, Matt. But I think there is going to be a subset of new fans that find these games finally after all these years and fall in love, just like so many have, especially with Persona 5. So I'm just happy it's coming. I'm happy that we get the best version on Xbox. It's crazy. It is crazy to think about after how long Atlas ignored Xbox. Like even the Games Radar article talks about that. They're like, Persona has been synonymous with PlayStation. Like, to even say this right now is really strange that the best version as of this moment is going to be on Xbox. Like it's crazy. So, but I think it's cool. I think it's great. And, like I said, I think that this could have something to do with the Sega partnership. I mean, again, the whole idea of these games coming for sure does. You and I believe that. But maybe that does. Maybe they gave a little extra effort to the Xbox side of things when it came to these games and made them native to the series console. So whatever it is, I'm just happy. There was some really cool news today. Nothing big, but really great to hear that we're getting those coming in January as well. So everybody, buckle up for some Persona. You're talking about 100 plus hours per game. So they're going to be time sinks during the holiday season for me. So can't wait. Man, we got some more news this week too on Need for Speed Unbound. We got to play kind of very short. Again, what are you guys doing, EA? Give me like 3 minutes of gameplay. This game is coming out in December.
It's like they're being shy about the gameplay.
Right. They announced, they made an announcement on Twitter to say, hey, everybody get ready. We're going to have a gameplay trailer tomorrow. Like they made this.
Their social media manager's like crazy.
Bro, he's a little strange, man. Like, Need for Speed fans, yo, this is your boy. Oh, I'm like, oh, come on. Stop trying so hard.
Yeah. I'm one of you.
I'm one of you, yeah. Hey, kids.
I'm a Need for Speed player, too, running the account. Check this.
Hey, kids, how are you? So anyways, we got like a 30-second gameplay trailer, which was great to see, but it showed me nothing. It didn't show me any cop chases. It didn't show me, like, anything. But graphics-wise, we did get another good look at it, Mav. And I got to say, the city, again, for anybody who doesn't know, current gen only game. It is not going to be on last gen. And I think you can tell. Criterion have been always great with their graphics. They're not, like, oh my God, always going to be mind-blowing. But you can tell that they spent their time just focused on the current gen because the city and the car details look fantastic.
Yeah.
My biggest question with this, and I thought the trailer showed it off well. The short clip that we did have showed off the animations. And I think that's what they're going for in this clip was to show off the animations and how they were going to show up. They showed off customization. You will be able to customize your animation. So this cartoonish anime style smoke coming out the back. When you go off jumps, you got like wing animations or different things that pop off. You've got, things over your wheels that glow, different symbols and stuff that you can have on there. They're kind of like a addition to your rims. They showed all that off. They showed the customization. And then they answered my biggest question as well. And that was that you can turn off most of the animations if you choose to do so. Because I thought that some of them, even watching that gameplay map, like while they look cool, some of them looked really cool. Some of them I was like, that's going to get annoying when you're racing all the time. Like that's going to be, it could actually affect some of the, way I'm sure they play tested it. So they're going to say it doesn't affect your driving, but it's a distraction. And when you're racing at hundreds of miles per hour, the last thing you want is distractions on your screen. So I'll have to see it. Again, I don't know anything until I play it.
Yeah.
But they did confirm that you can turn off most of the animations. They did say, yeah, and hey, in this tweet, he used this again. Hey guys, Need for Speed Unbound update from your boy. Jesus Christ.
Cool.
Basic tail smoke and trail lights cannot be disabled. Everything else can be, though. So
yeah,
and
he says basic tail smoke and trail lights.
Yes.
So that seems like
just the normal
yeah
stuff. Yeah. So pretty much all the really big animation that comes with this game. And I know some people out there be like, well, that's part of the game. But then there's other purists out there who I have seen on Twitter say, those animations, that's not what I want my Need for Speed. So I think they did a great job here being able to adjust in the fly. Mav, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it looks awesome. I think can't wait to see some actual gameplay. But I think some of the animations are distracting people even when they're looking at the footage of this game, because there's a lot of like really impressive stuff to look at that's not the animations. So like the car detail in itself is really top notch. The city looks great. The lighting looks amazing, right? And then when we see these trailers, you see all these like animations and bright shiny images flying everywhere, and it's like, whoa, what's that? And it kind of catches your eye a lot. But I do appreciate this, and I feel like it's something that I'm probably going to have off until I find the one that I love. You know what I mean? Because like if it's customizable and you can choose, I feel like at some point there's gonna be something I unlock. I'm like, ooh, that looks pretty cool, and I want to try it.
Right.
And then I might implement that at that point. And then I think that's kind of what they're going for with this. I also do love the characters in this.
Yeah.
The way the characters look. Because it's just refreshing, dude. Like it's a new take on it. I feel like this is a Criterion game. I feel like this is going to be a cross between like a Burnout Paradise and a Need for Speed Underground. Because even in the trailer we saw like a ramp, you know, that was a hallmark of like the Burnout Paradise game. And I feel like that's part of the reason where they're going with some of the animation type stuff to add that level of like not ultra seriousness to it. Ultimately Burnout's all about the crashes and stuff too. I don't know if I think this is going there. But what I mean is like more of the arcadey sense and high speed action feeling, you know, like lots of like nitrous and stuff, and heavy on customization, where I think it's like that's where it gets stuff from like Underground, right? So I feel like it's like going to be an ultra like interesting arcade racer, right? And it needs to do something to differentiate itself from a game like Forza Horizon 5, right? Because Forza Horizon 5 is like so freaking solid that anything trying to go and compete against that directly is just going to like look like butt. You know what I mean? So they got to do something different. I love the nighttime setting as well. You know, bringing that night city life racing. You know, and I also saw lots of beautiful daytime gameplay as well. The lighting in this game looks fantastic. So, dude, I'm pumped for it. I released a list of my top 4 most anticipated games for this holiday right now. Need for Speed's on that list, right? I love arcade racers. I want Need for Speed to come back in a big way because I miss it. The last few were not hitting for me whatsoever. So I want Need for Speed to be great. Midnight Suns was one, which we may talk about here in a little bit. And then another one was Gotham Knights is my most anticipated. And then Modern Warfare 2. Those are my top 4, right? And then there's a lot of other games like right below that. But yeah, dude, I'm really looking forward to it, dude. I think they need to show more of it, especially with it coming around the corner. But I think they still got time for it. Maybe a couple weeks before release, they'll probably do more of a blowout and stuff. And
I hope so, because I want to see more. I want to see the cop chases. I want to get a good feel. I think if Criterion brings the car handling from Burnout to Need for Speed, that will be the biggest plus for me, because I've said that from the beginning. It's all about the handling. Need for Speed has lost its way when it came to the car handling.
For sure.
Yeah. So if they bring Burnout is probably the closest to the older Need for Speeds, still to this day, that we have. I've gone back and played Burnout recently, and it feels great. And the cars feel and move a lot like the older Need for Speeds did. So if they do that, I'm going to be one happy camper. But I do want to see the cops. I want to see how the cops actions. I want to hear about some of the modes that they might implement. We talked about this last week, Mav. I agree with you, just like last week on the animation characters and that kind of stuff. That's all cool little additions. But we talked about too, it would be sweet if they have a, cop mode where you can be the cop and you're chasing down your buddies. I mean, that would just
there's got to be more information on some of the modes and things coming out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So,
I haven't done a lot of reading. I know they did some Q&A type stuff as well. But I feel like there's still a lot for them to tell about what they're doing. There's some interesting things that Jasper noticed before with the online component, where you get like, if you pre-order, you get, was it 100,000 to spend like online in the multiplayer mode? So there's some interesting things going on here that we don't know 100% about yet.
Yeah. So definitely looking forward to a bigger. Oh, a little side note off of this too for Need for Speed Unbound. Some people might have missed this, but Toyotas are skipping Need for Speed again.
Yeah.
So no Toyota Supras, no MR2s, no CLiCKs. None of the classic cars are going to be there from Toyota. And people were questioning why. And I actually saw somebody dig up
the Need for Speed account. They actually, our boy.
Yeah, did you our boy. Did you see? Yeah, did you see that? Did you? Well, no, did you see the tweet underneath where they did the whole, where somebody posted the whole screenshot from the old tweet though? So,
yes.
So Need for Speed Unbound had hit up Toyota and said, "Hey, Toyota, come talk to me. We'd love to have you back in Need for Speed Unbound." Yeah. And then people were like, "What is going on with Toyota?" And you guys, well, they went back down, and what was it? Need for Speed. Which game was it? Need for Speed. Damn.
The Run, maybe?
Oh, I don't remember. But that account, when Toyota pulled out, Need for Speed account had hit them up back in the day and say, "Toyota, we'd love to have you back," or something like that. And then Toyota actually responded. Their account responded and said, "Hey, here's a great game where Toyotas are present in Gran Turismo and it doesn't promote illegal street racing."
Right.
And then the Need for Speed underground, or the Need for Speed account back in the day underneath said "nerds."
Yeah.
That's what the hell they responded to Toyota. So this is like old bad blood between Toyota and Need for Speed. It's kind of crazy.
It's just like Toyota, like, come on, it's not, it's a video game. You know what I mean? It's not serious, right?
It's so stupid, bro.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Like, people are actually using Toyotas for illegal street racing, and you won't let them do it in a video game. Like,
right. Exactly. Come on. They are kind of nerds. Whatever.
Nerds.
Nerds. All right. Let's jump to Mav. Let's keep the fun train going here. Let's keep the fun train. Where do we want to go here? Let's do this. Again, I love being on a podcast and controlling the narrative here.
Controlling the narrative. That's what we do here at Fun Speculation. Gatekeep the narrative here.
Exactly. We got a little 4-minute Q&A from God Howard himself. He came down out of the heavens and he blessed us by answering some questions from the community. That's right. We got a Bethesda post this week where they did they're taking questions from the community. You can put them on Twitter. You can go to the Starfield website. And they are going to choose certain ones, and they're going to have, I assume it's going to be Todd each week answer these questions, but we'll see if they hop around to different devs on the team. But this week it was Todd. And so he answered some questions about Starfield, Mav. And again, it was only 4 minutes long, so it wasn't the biggest deal in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but he did drop some nuggets, Mav. He actually got into some detail. So, number one, he talked about the travel system, because they asked him if this was a hard sci-fi game, if he would classify this as a hard sci-fi game. And while answering that question, and first of all, he answered the question as that, well, it's a trap question because it depends on who you ask and what their definition is, so it's really tough to answer that question.
You would have to, I wouldn't even know what to tell you exactly what does hard sci-fi mean.
Correct. There's so many different ways you could go with that. Like he said, hard sci-fi, you die cold in space. Like that's what he said. Okay. He's like, that's hard sci-fi. But he said, let me give you an example. He said, let's talk about fuel and the hyperdrive system for travel. He said, I did all this. We were doing all this research. He said, I was reading books on, how, potentially this travel could work. And he talked about, space bends towards you. You don't actually open a hole, but you bend the space towards you and all this kind of stuff. And he said, so we had, they originally had the system in place where you could run out of fuel. So they had fuel management in Starfield to begin with. And he said, but while we were testing it, while we were play testing it, he said, wound up running out of fuel. And he's like, basically your game's over with if you run out of fuel in the middle of space. So he said, people just want to get back to what they're doing, not stuck in the middle of space. Right. So he said, we took that out. So there's no more fuel management. But what he did say is that in return, what they put in, he said, based upon your fuel system and your hyperdrive, you will have a certain distance you can travel at any one given time. So they switched that up, and he talked about that, which was really interesting. Again, that stuff.
It makes more sense because nobody would want to take on that travel if you weren't able to make the trip.
Well, some of us survival guys would kind of like it. And he said, he goes, maybe there'll be an update later, or he goes, maybe somebody will mod it in where you can actually manage your fuel. Jesus, combining words again here, Matt. Manage your fuel system. I think it would be kind of cool if you had to do that.
You just can't stop at an intergalactic space station?
Yeah, there's no gas stations.
Oh, okay.
So, but you know what? Yeah, right. Exactly. So I just thought that was interesting. And, I'll have to see how it plays. But obviously, I'm happy they did it that way, because if it was an issue, yeah, sure, some hardcore people are really going to love it, but the masses probably would be like more annoyed than anything else if that happened. Yeah. So that was one cool thing. And then we had dialogue lines. They talked about the dialogue, the quests, and how they were doing this. Well, first of all, he did confirm that they are over 250,000 lines of dialogue. To put that in comparison, Skyrim had like 60,000 lines of dialogue. And Fallout 4 had 111,000 lines of dialogue. So they are double Fallout 4 in dialogue. And then he talked about the dialogue system map. And this is where it gets me excited. We've heard him in the past, Mav. You and I broke down his interviews. You broke down his interviews. He's been talking about this for a long time. But he talked about how when they were making Starfield, they were going back. And they were going back to their foundation, and this was going to be more RPG like.
Yeah.
And we always said, well, what does that exactly mean? How much are we getting back to the old school? Well, as far as the dialogue system, he said it himself. We're going back to a more classic Bethesda dialogue system. So you get your choices. He said you're going to read the person, you're going to read their emotions, that kind of stuff. You're going to pick your dialogue, etc. And then he also talked about the persuasion, because you can persuade people. And normally it was just a choice in older Bethesda games. If you had the persuasion up, you had better percent chance of success, right? Mm-hmm. Well, now they've got a point system. You got to spend points to persuade somebody. And so you got a list of responses to persuade. Each one has a point value. And you got to decide how many points you're going to spend to try to persuade this person. That's got me very, very intrigued. But the fact that they've gone to more classic style Bethesda dialogue tree system, I am so freaking excited. So freaking excited about that. They also said that he also did mention offhandedly, which we already knew, much more questing involved in this game.
Yeah.
He said the level of quests in this game. And he said it's not even about the number of quests in this game. He said it's about the depth of the quests. Right. And how detailed these are going to be. Look.
One of those things that always happened before with like Bethesda games is like you would start off on a quest.
Yep.
And it would turn into another quest. Mm-hmm. And then you have a branching quest within quest, right? Mm-hmm. And it ends up being like one quest becomes 3 quests, becomes like 5 quests. And there's all these decisions you make, and then you all of a sudden have a big story. And this was all a side quest to begin with.
Yes,
right?
Correct.
Not even part of the main story. And it
started out as a fetch quest, and it turned into this huge adventure.
Yeah, and you're like, wow, I just played a whole fucking game just doing something that was completely optional. Right?
Right.
That's one of the amazing things about Bethesda games.
Yeah, it is. God, I can't wait for this game. And then they talked about the trait system a little bit as well. Trait system, we got you can go look them up. People took screenshots. We did get to see a couple new traits that we hadn't seen in the previous video, and people the list of traits is huge. But people are always interested. So we did get a look at a couple. One of them was alien DNA. And what it was is that it helped you. I think it gave you more stamina and health, but you recovered your health less. Every trait comes with a negative. That's how
Mhm.
they balance it out. So for anybody who doesn't know, when you create your character, you get to pick out a couple traits that your character has. You can also go traitless and just be completely neutral character as well. But the traits will give you bonuses along with the negative. But they talked about this and asked him how the trait system, if you didn't like your trait. And Todd said, well, instead of having to create a whole new character this time around, if all of a sudden, 30 hours in, you decide you don't like the trait and it's not playing right for you, they're actually making a quest line where you can actually go have a trait permanently removed from you. So I thought that was cool as well. Mav, what did you focus on listening to this interview? Todd looked confident. Again, that's one of the big things about him in his interviews, man. He just looks so excited. But the fact that he's giving out little nuggets in a short Q&A, um, they got to be close, man. I mean, I know it's not going to
Yeah.
be here till May or June, but they got to be. This game's got to be to the point where he looks at it and says, "This is the game I imagined. Now we're just fixing everything that we possibly can." Right? I mean, it just
Well,
sounds.
they said
Sounds like
before
it's
they were
right.
in polishing phase like
Yeah,
last
yeah,
year, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So then they'd say they still got stuff to finish, and I think they're just trying to craft it to be what they want. And I think it's honestly, I feel like if Microsoft hadn't purchased ZeniMax Bethesda, this game may have already been released,
it would have. Yeah,
you know?
for the investors. Yeah,
Yeah, and
definitely.
this is like they've been afforded more time to, because there's less pressure. Even with as much pressure as they would could have had about trying to meet that 11-11-22, and being the big first party game for Xbox this year with all the other delays, still not enough pressure to rush it out when it's not finished. You know what I mean? So in some ways, I think this is going to be. It's obviously from everything that Todd is saying, the only biggest takeaways for me is this is by far the biggest game they've ever done.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, not even
Yes.
close. You know.
No.
They talked about Fallout 76 and how many devs worked on that compared to
Oh,
how
that
many
was another
devs.
leak that I was going to get to. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and how many
Go
devs
ahead.
worked on this game, and that was like Fallout 76 was primarily developed from those that don't know because this has been wrongly compared to Todd Howard primary games for a long time. Well, that was like the B teams, right?
Yep.
That was Austin and I forget the other. Was it Toronto or something? I can't remember. There's two other Bethesda teams that primarily worked on this with support from A team, right? And this game is like A team led. This is like the core single player experience Fallout Elder Scrolls team that made Skyrim and Morrowind and Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 doing something that they've always wanted to do, right? You got vets that have been with that team for 20 plus years, right? Fully realizing a dream that they've had. And that's what comes through whenever he speaks still.
Yeah.
It's like about the vision, like you can get into specifics like the dialogue. It looks that's all awesome and stuff, and how much quest lines there are as well that was alluded to, and all these different aspects, right? But the number one thing for me is still just how massive this is and how much of a traditional Bethesda RPG it's shaping up to be, but in a new way because it's in space, right? And this is exactly why I've always been hyped about it, why I've always been excited about it, why it's still my most anticipated game right now. It would be my most anticipated this year if it was hitting this year. Instead, it's my most anticipated for 2023. If this came out in 2024, it'd be my most anticipated. I mean, I've been looking forward to this game ever since Bethesda mentioned they wanted to make a space RPG at one point. You know what I mean? And we're finally on the cusp of seeing that come to reality. And I think we're all onto something special here. It gets a lot of crap because, it didn't look like the most amazing graphically or whatever. But people don't understand the kind of game this is when they try and say that stuff. It's like you got to take a step back and realize what they're trying to accomplish on this. And it's the scale and scope of this game with a level of story involved, with a level of quest involved, with a level of dialogue and interaction with the environment.
Yep.
All this stuff is shaping up to be absolutely insane, and I'm gonna get lost in it. And I bet you, Pong, I will never beat it. I'm just saying, the only, because I think the only Elder Scrolls game I beat is Oblivion. I did beat it, Fallout 3, right?
Okay.
But most of the Bethesda RPGs I don't beat because I just get lost in the world,
Lost.
And
I understand.
I just like live in it, and I don't really like even think about having to progress the main storyline.
Correct.
I
get that.
So maybe I will. Maybe the main story will be so good that I have to get through that storyline, right?
Yep.
But I just bet there's gonna be so many damn distractions in here. I can't wait to see what the modding community does with it, dude. It's gonna be insane with all those planets, bro. So who brought this up? Was it Jasper or Psycho in our DM saying like, what if it was like the Skyrim took place on a different planet or whatever?
Psycho and Jasper were talking about this because Psycho brought it up and said he thinks that it'll come out that this is a part of the Fallout universe. Right. And I brought up the fact that that's been shot down by Bethesda because there was rumors that Skyrim and Fallout were the same universe, that Elder Scrolls and Fallout were the same universe, and they shot that down and said no way. But Jasper brought in the point that, what did Jasper say? I can't even remember.
It could be its own planet or something.
Yeah, it could be its own planet within the same universe, just taking place. But because the universe is obviously limitless for the most part. I mean, yes, I know there's a limit to a universe, but what I'm saying is that you could have a Skyrim world and a Fallout world exist within the same universe no matter what at the end of the day. So, but yeah, I think it's very interesting, Mav, and to give people a little bit more, PC Games had an interview with an ex-Bethesda dev this week as well.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting a lot of that info from.
Yeah, he didn't, and it was Montreal.
Montreal, okay.
Yeah, Montreal, same as Eidos. He didn't go, he can't, obviously, even as an ex-dev, he's not going to burn bridges and he's not going to break NDAs. He can't go into details, but he did drop this one as far as you were talking about the difference. About 200 people, he said, worked on Fallout 76, and he says that Starfield is 500 plus. So that's huge. I mean, again, if you want to get down to scope of what they're trying to accomplish here, and I got to give another shout out too. I watched David Jaffe's latest show that he does, whatever you want to call it. He just randomly jumps online and starts talking to people. But David Jaffe, of course, Twisted Metal God of War dev, ex-Sony dev, who tells it like it is as he sees things. He doesn't hold anything back. But he actually played this interview for his chat, and he had a bunch of Sony fanboys in there, absolutely just going off.
Yeah.
Todd's such a liar. The Starfield's gonna suck. Blah blah blah. He actually stopped and he addressed the chat and he said, "Why do you guys do this?" He said, "If this game isn't for you, I get it." He goes, I don't even know if I'm gonna love it." He goes, "I don't play many Bethesda games." He goes, "I don't know if I love it. But why do you guys have to say this stuff?" And then he went in to explain what you and I have talked about, and so many of us have talked about in all these shows, man, about Todd Howard and Bethesda. He goes, they are trying something so ambitious, so unbelievable in scope. He goes, it may fail. It may come out and be the worst thing ever. He goes, but I want to see people like this do this. This is what's great about the medium. He goes, I love the medium. And he goes, some of you out here, I probably say I'm more of a gamer than you are just because of your hate for certain things. He goes, that doesn't make any sense to me. He goes, why don't you want to see people try this? He goes, if they fail, they fail. If it's a bad game, it's a bad game. But they're trying to do something on a different scale than most people ever will attempt. And he goes, I want companies like this, dev teams like this, to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He goes, you guys need to knock it off. He goes, I don't understand. He goes, if you just don't want to play the game, that's fine. Don't play the game. But why say you hate something before you've ever even tried it, or, bring up all these old things about Todd Howard and Bethesda? He goes, they might all be true. He goes, but it doesn't matter. They are trying something new here. And he goes, that's what I want to see in this industry. He goes, if all you love to play is your third-person narrative-driven games, go play them. Play them to your heart's content. Love you. That's great. But do not shit on stuff that you don't have any interest in, or that you just want to shit on because it's not on your favorite it's not on your favorite a console. He goes, that's wrong. He goes, I hate that. But I guess gotta give a shout out to Jaffe for doing that again. I don't always agree with the guy whatsoever, but he does shoot it like it is. And I thought it was great that him as a former dev showed up and said, look, no, we want people like Todd Howard and Bethesda making these types of games, because everybody was bringing up the bugs or whatever else. And he goes, he goes, yeah, he goes, in this type of open world game, exactly what you and I talked about, Mav, in this type of open world game, this scope, yeah, you're going to have bugs. He goes, you can't highly control what happens in this type of game. He goes, that's the difference between a God of War and something like this. He goes, you can control. He goes, I remember when we were developing God of War, I could control every single situation that the player was going to be in. We could go through and play it and say, ooh, this text is going to confuse people, or, oh, they're going to get hung up in this spot, and we could fix it. He goes, with a game like this, that's impossible. He goes, as long as it's not, as we always say, he goes, as long as it's not a game-breaking bug, he goes, as long as it's not erasing your saves or it's crashing on you constantly, he goes, I'll put up with some bugs in a game like this. So, again, shout out to Jaffe, making points that we've made too before, Matt.
Yeah.
It's cool to hear a former dev stand up and say, no. Let's not get into this garbage here. So, that was pretty sweet. All right.
Absolutely.
Huh?
I said absolutely, but I saw Apollo in the chat said, did we see the screenshots of Indiana Jones? Is there screenshots of Indiana Jones out there? Or is that fake?
I didn't post them because I don't think there's any validity whatsoever. I think they're Red Dead Redemption 2 mod.
Okay.
And a lot of people pointed out huge similarities with 2 or 3 of the pictures to Red Dead Redemption 2. So I didn't even post them because I didn't even think it was worth a salt on that one.
Right on.
So
Spider-Man says that's fake. Yeah. No, that's fine. I was curious.
They look
great. I never saw it. I don't know how
they look great. If they're the RDR2 engine, you can tell that they look freaking fantastic. And if that's what it turns out to be looking like, it was third person. It was Indiana Jones with the hat, jacket, the whip hanging off. I mean, it looked cool. I wish they were real, but I was like, nah, those aren't real. Those aren't real for sure. Let's see here, Mav. Where to next? Let's jump in here real quick. So Modern Warfare 2, Mav, we got a little news from InsiderGaming.com this week. That we're not just going to have the main campaign and that's it. You know, we're getting the campaign a week early if you pre-order. But they're planning on releasing campaign DLC in 2023, Mav. Now, we talked about how they were going to do this because they're on a new model where they're skipping a year. We're not going to have the yearly release, so they got to keep Modern Warfare 2 going. Obviously, you and I have been singing its praises ever since we played the beta and all the different stuff. But the idea that they're going to bring in paid campaign DLC, a lot of people say campaigns are, there's a lot of people enjoying the campaigns, obviously. Most of us have played Call of Duty campaigns from time to time. There's people like Rand. Shout out to Rand if he's in the chat. I know he lurks all the time, but Rand, I heard Rand say, he only plays Call of Duty for the campaign. He doesn't play any multiplayer whatsoever. But how do you think this is going to work, man? They tell a whole story, right? This is a remake, but they're changing things. They're doing things with the story as we saw in the first Modern Warfare. But they're going to make this campaign. What are you going to do with campaign paid DLC? So it's got to be big. I mean, you can't put out some small stuff. What do you think they do with this? You got any ideas? Because I was racking my brain trying to think how they were going to pull this off.
I'm wondering if it'd be like a separate mode altogether, like that's like missions or something like that. You can go do like co-op style missions, right? Because we do know they have some kind of co-op mode. I forget the details on that. But maybe more story focused. I don't know. I was trying to wrap my head around it too, but with there being skipping a year, right? I would think also that campaign DLC may go along with multiplayer stuff as well, right? But I saw some talk about the map packs and stuff like that as well. Like, I don't like segmenting map packs anymore between the community, right?
Yeah,
because I like one big. Everybody get the same maps, and you have the whole community play all the maps, right? But then thinking about it, and I think I can't remember who brought it up, but if you had like a whole big map pack was like all the maps from like a past game,
Yeah.
it would be pretty cool, and that would be
Yes.
worthwhile of purchasing.
Yes.
But still would segment, the audience. So maybe if you had like was there a bundle? Did they announce the bundles yet? Like for
No, they
Modern
have
Warfare
not.
2?
Well, yeah, they've got the bundles out.
So
Yeah,
does
they
the
got
season
Ultimate.
pass have like the co-op
Yes,
DLC for
Battle
season?
Pass. Yeah, Battle
But there's
Pass
probably a
and all
season
that.
1, and then there's probably going to be a year 2 pass, probably.
I would
So
imagine
what I
yes.
imagine is going to be some, if they're doing that because they're skipping the years, maybe they're going to have like some next year. They're going to have some big announcement of an expansion for the game.
Yeah.
With more multiplayer maps and more campaign, and maybe just
Yeah.
a continuation of the story. The only other thing I could think of is if they had like, some multiplayer or co-op based story mode, and you had added missions to it. Right? I don't know. It's interesting because it's different. It's different for COD, like I'd never seen that before.
And it'd just be weird to have everybody play the campaign and be like, well, if you want the real ending to the campaign, you gotta buy the paid DLC.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Like, I don't want that. Like,
I would want it to be like a whole nother story, like a side story or something.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. It has to be, is like, yeah, something branching off of the main campaign. Like, I don't know. Or maybe they introduce some DLC characters, and those DLC characters have their own story in the within the campaign. Something like that. Jason Schreier weighed in on this too and said next year they'll be selling new stuff for Modern Warfare 2, an expansion or something like that. Not sure exactly what it'll look like, but it will have campaign stuff too. So it sounds more along the lines what you were talking about, Mav, that it's going to be not separate per se from the year 2 pass or whatever the case. It's going to be bundled together with some multiplayer stuff. Right?
Yeah, it would make the most sense because I don't think if you just focus on the single player stuff, you're not going to have as big of an audience just to go out and purchase that. Right. Because obviously there's a big audience for the single player, but the main reason that Call of Duty is the franchise it is because of the multiplayer, right? And people are, if you're going for a year 2 aspect there to keep it fresh, I would think you'd have a large amount of additional content,
right?
To keep people engaged for a whole second year, right? Yes. Because you're used to people being like, okay, the next COD's coming, moving on COD to COD to COD. This time you're going to try and keep them engaged for 2 whole years, right?
Yeah.
So Warzone obviously kind of is the side equation here where people will still constantly get fresh updates into Call of Duty all the time, but not with the main primary game. And I think they'll use it as an opportunity to get that potential. I don't think it'd be like a $70 expansion or whatever, but like maybe if they do like a $40, $50 big giant expansion thing, right? That would help them offset not having that yearly release with their content pipeline, right? Yeah. But I'm happy they're doing this skipping a year anyway, just to give their devs more time to get the games out, and because I feel like Modern Warfare 2019 was a step above the last 2 games. I mean, was the last 2 games. And I want, with how Modern Warfare 2 is looking, I think it's going to be even a step above that. And I want these other Call of Duties that eventually come out to be at least closer to these games. Yep.
And it'll be interesting to see what Microsoft does with it, assuming the deal goes through. Which we'll talk about.
Which there was a rumor about Advanced Warfare, the next one being another Advanced Warfare, right?
Yes.
The Sledgehammer's game.
Yep, Sledgehammer game, going back to, I mean, the campaign in that is freaking amazing.
Yeah.
The sci-fi aspect of it is
that cool, the one with Robert Redford, or is that the one with Kevin Spacey? I can't remember. There was Infinite Warfare and like Advanced Warfare.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Was Robert Redford in one of them? I can't remember. No.
Wait, no.
Somebody was. No. Somebody was in one of them, and somebody was in the other one. I can't remember who was. Yeah, they went on this trend of getting these actors.
Right. But whatever the case may be, it'll be interesting if Microsoft eventually transitions Mav to a games as a service with Call of Duty, and they just add expansions to it instead of having it come out with a release every year.
Yeah,
because that would shift everything, and I think that's part of the reason why they may not want to commit. I mean, outside of it being ridiculous to ask for more of a commitment, than they're willing to give to Sony. Eventually, I think that they see themselves moving away from all of it as far as that kind of release schedule goes, and just again, dropping continuous content because again, Modern Warfare 2 could be the biggest of all time. I believe it is going to be. I believe it's going to set the record for Call of Duty. And if that's the case, why would you ever want that thing to die off? It won't. People will keep playing it nonstop, especially if the next one comes out and people aren't happy with it. We've seen this before. Modern Warfare, the first one, is still being played, even though it's hacker central right now. People are still playing it. So eventually you're going to get to that point where you might have to make a decision like that.
Yeah.
All right.
The chat's telling me it was Kit Harington in Infinite. For some reason, I'm thinking Robert Redford in my brain, but I think it's because the Black Ops Cold War, one of the guys, the characters in that looks like fucking Robert Redford. It's like pretty much Robert Redford in that game.
Yep. The first time I saw him, I forget his
name.
Like,
oh, is that Robert Redford? Oh my God. That's cool, you know?
Yeah. Well, they had Reagan, so why not Robert Redford? Right? Yeah. All right. Last small topic, and then we'll get into the meaty stuff, chat. Okay. Again, thank you all for being here. If you haven't already, we got over 100 people in here. Hit the like button. If you got a second, share it out. Looks like Mav and I are going to run a little bit longer tonight because we got some big topics.
Yeah, we're about an hour and 20 minutes in. We haven't got to our main topics
but
yet.
We're talking all game stuff, folks. See, I told you. It's not ABK Central, okay? Mav and I are still excited for all this other stuff as well. So
2 hours of ABK talk coming right at you.
Oh, God. All right, let's see here. Let's go. Marvel's Midnight Suns, Mav. We got some late information today. Pretty interesting. You and I have had a heck of a time with Marvel's Midnight Suns. We were really hyped when it first came out because, of course, for anybody who doesn't know yet, Firaxis is the developer behind. They are behind one of the ultimate turn-based strategy games in XCOM, which Mav and I both love. XCOM is one of the greatest. They haven't made a game since XCOM 2. And the expansions, obviously. So this is their next game. So Mav and I were super hyped about Marvel's Midnight Suns, but then they showed us some gameplay. I forget where it was at, Mav. Where was it at? Was it during E3?
It was right after, like a couple days after they showcased it on IGN.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, right. And all of a sudden they've got this card-based system.
Yeah.
Now, Mav and I like certain card-based games. There's certain ones I really like, and there's other ones I don't like. But Mav and I were hoping for a classic Firaxis type title, and instead they threw the card system in there.
Right.
And they flat out blatantly said it was to attract a wider audience, because obviously XCOM is heavy on the strategy, and not everybody's forte. So being that they now have a Marvel IP, they obviously wanted to make a bigger, wider audience, which I don't fault them for at all. It's just that after that showing, Mav and I were like, I don't know anymore. So, but they've had a couple showings since then, and they've gone back. They delayed the game, obviously, from its original launch. And it feels like, because they did say, I think in an interview, that they were taking feedback. I think they heard a little bit. They haven't removed the card system. The card system is still there. But what I've seen out of the gameplay does look faster. Mm-hmm. It does look a little bit more strategic in some areas.
There's some in-depth stuff with this. Because they're explaining it. I was watching some stuff, and I was like, I don't understand what they're talking about.
What you're saying.
Because it was really in-depth, stacking, all these different things. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to learn this, So it seems pretty deep.
It does seem a lot deeper, and it does seem more strategic. I'm still not sure about the relationship part of it, but I think it's going to be okay. Again, for everybody who doesn't already know, I'm not the biggest comic book guy right now. I used to be back in the day. X-Men was my crew.
X-Mon
was my crew. X-Men was my crew. I've got all the Spawn issues from 1 to whatever 30, 40 out there. I got doubles of everything. So I mean, I was a comic book guy back in the day. I'm just not so much anymore, and I don't watch the Marvel movies religiously or anything like that. So again, this game didn't do anything for me. But what I will say is that you get to choose your team here. So once you start opening up the characters, you get to make the team you want to, which interests me. Because even if there's a bunch of characters there I could care less about, I can find a group of 3 or 4 characters that I really like. And so the relationship part, if that's all I have to do is interact with those people to strengthen my bonds, which again gives you bonus powers in game, so be it. I'll be cool with that. Plus, you get to make your own Marvel superhero. And that'll be the leader of the team. So that all has got me excited again. But we got news today. This is from WC Tech, CCF Tech, .com. Marvel's Midnight Suns launches in less than 2 months, and yet a lot of folks still have some questions about the game. Thankfully, Firaxis has launched a new series. Did you make it?
No, brick.
All that NBA 2K, you can't hit that shot. Okay.
Why I haven't hit tier 100 yet? Damn it.
Thankfully, Firaxis has launched a new series of developer live streams that should provide some more gameplay and information about the new XCOM style tactical RPG. You can check out the first one below, which includes new gameplay featuring the likes of Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel, Blade, Wolverine, Iron Man, and Magic. The developer video ends with a Q&A in which creative director Jake Solomon and producer Garth DeAngelis answer some questions about the game. We've already heard that Marvel's Midnight Suns will be a big game, but Solomon and DeAngelis went into more granular detail, promising a campaign that will require you to complete at least 45 plus missions and more than 80 hours of gameplay for those who want to wrap up all the side content. Quote, I would say the campaign is about 50 hours. I'd say a minimum is maybe 45, 40 hours. That's if you're really just straight lining it. Golden Path, none of the optional content, no additional missions. And there's so much optional content. We've had a lot of user tests and a lot of folks are playing upwards of 70 to 80 hours. And that's even without them doing all the additional content. This is truly an RPG and the game is kind of at your discretion. Solomon also got into the deck building aspect of Midnight Suns, somewhat divisive card system. We're not alone, Mav. We're not alone. While your hand will be randomized, it turns out that you'll have quite a bit of power over it. What cards each character brings to the battle. Quote, there's a limit to the cards in your hand, but it's very big. It's 10 cards. It's rare that you reach that. Every hero brings 8 cards into combat, and it's up to you, the player, to decide which cards they are. Over the course of the game, especially with your favorite heroes, you're going to customize what abilities every hero has. It gets really tough for the player-created hunter who has so many abilities to choose from. You can unlock things like combos. Those come out of friendship. Again, going back to the relationship building I was talking about. As you increase friendship with the other heroes around the Abbey, you'll start to say, okay, not only is each hero bringing in 8 cards, then we're also going to throw in some combo cards as well. Marvel's Midnight Suns launches on PC, Xbox One, Xbox Series, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and Switch on December the 2nd.
That's a big day, dude.
It's a big day, bro.
It's $140 day for me. We're just with those two. Isn't that the same day the Callisto Protocol is coming out too, though?
Yes.
That's 3 big games on the same day.
Yeah.
So Midnight Suns, Need for Speed.
Yep.
And Callisto Protocol.
Yep.
In December.
Or maybe Callisto 12th?
Maybe. I don't know. What day is Callisto, guys? So usually December isn't as strong with releases. No. Usually it's all October, November. Maybe there's one that hits December, but this is pretty damn big. But yeah, dude, wow. I mean, the more time has gone on since that, like I said, that initial disappointment, right? I've grown to be more and more hyped for this game. And I think my hype has actually surpassed my original excitement.
Yes.
When I first saw the trailer. Because watching the gameplay with the cards and stuff, it's a traditional tactics style game still. Where they show the area of effect and the combat and, the buffs and all these different things. It's just that the cards are a visual representation of your abilities, pretty much, right? So having the option of kind of tinkering with that behind the scenes makes me feel like it's going to be a lot of it's going to be very rewarding to get these cards and to like be able to like swap them out and a lot of decision making. And that's where like these games really get interesting, right? Because my characters will be different from other people's, right? And so there's a lot to love here, man. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping it's because of the system that they're implementing. It could be a fresh take on a genre that has been kind of one noted for a long time, right? Mm-hmm. And even it's kind of like a blend of things we've played, because it takes like elements from like something like Hearthstone, right? Or like Gwent, you know what I mean? With some of the cards in ways like the points and the stacks.
A deck building aspect.
Yeah. and then also it takes traditional tactics gameplay, but then it involves it all around an IP that I love, which is Marvel, right?
Yep.
So um, I feel like there's gonna be a lot of cool shit here, and I'm really excited for it. I hope it becomes its own franchise, like its own thing, and maybe that this opens the door for other games like this. You know,
And there's still characters to be released later. They're going to have DLC. They're going to have new
yeah,
characters introduced. We don't have a list of those characters.
it could be an
as of
exciting
yet.
thing when this game really blows up to get the new character reveals. You know, for
Right.
like Smash Bros. You know, when they
Right.
get a new fighter. Who's the new Midnight Sun?
Suns. If it was competitive and we could play multiplayer, that'd be even better.
Yeah, that would be
Anyways,
sick. Who knows? Maybe the future.
Who knows? Who knows? But I was just excited, like you said, Mav. You know, again, with Fur Access, I have such faith in them and what they did with the XCOM series that for me, even though I was down, it was hard to go against them, and I trust them so much that they're gonna do right. And this article, this interview, actually was even better for me because when they said it's at least 50 plus hours, like I was like, okay, you're giving us an XCOM size game. You might be saying you're trying to go for more people or more masses, trying to bring more people in, which I totally understand, but you're not cutting down on what you're giving us. And then they say 80 hours if you're going to do the side content as well. This is straight up a Fur Access game. And that's what I was happy to hear. And the deck building stuff, you know, it sounds like you're going to have more control. It's not going to be totally randomized. So that means, because again, my big thing was I'm going to have these superheroes. I want them to use their special abilities. I want to know what skill set I'm going in with to the battle. I don't want it to be a different skill set every time because that's part of strategy RPGs is knowing the strengths of your team and knowing how you're going to take on whatever situation you're currently facing. And I wanted to know that. I didn't want to have walk in and all of a sudden Doctor Strange doesn't have my favorite ability of his, and now I've got to somehow figure out how I'm going to do this. Like that's part of strategy is learning your characters, learning their strengths and weaknesses, and then knowing how to actually incorporate them together within each new battle. So that was important to me that they mentioned that. So it sounds like I'm going to have a lot of control over that. We're going to have a lot of control over that. So December 2nd, yeah, I got to budget this one in. This is on my list of must buys. I'm going to have a lot to play, but Midnight Suns, I definitely want out the gate. I'm going to get the Ultimate Edition for this one with all the DLC. I want the alternative costumes, you know, and because I'm going to be playing with Magic because she's the closest thing to Phoenix and Jean Grey that I'm going to get.
Right.
And they do have a Phoenix outfit for her. So I'm in. I'm going to do that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one, man. So I think great information from Midnight Suns. All right, we got a lot of good game talk out there. We got talked about a lot of different games coming out again. Golden age of gaming is upon us. So, Mav, let's get down to business here. The gift that keeps on giving, sir, is back yet again. And let's do this, Mav. Let's start here first. Let's start here. Strauss Zelnick gave a little interview this week concerning the state of the gaming. You can have your opinion of Strauss. And you missed again. I heard it.
Gonna get one sometime.
You can have your opinion of Strauss. You can have your opinion of how 2K has handled a lot of things. I've stated my displeasure with 2K on many occasions. Strauss is very business minded. But what I will tell you is when you watch an interview with Strauss, this dude knows his shit. Okay? There is no denying that even if this guy isn't a gamer like Phil, he understands trends better than almost everybody out there. This guy is ultra, what do I want to say? He is very aware of what is happening in the industry from a gamer's perspective and also from a business perspective. So he had this interview with Yahoo. You can go watch the interview. I'm not going to pull everything out of it, but there's a couple things here, and we're going to talk about the Activision Blizzard because they asked him directly about his thoughts on the Activision Blizzard deal. But what I will start out with a couple interesting other side notes that Strauss brought out is that things that we've all been talking about, man. Again, it's not a brag thing or anything like that. It's just a statement of fact that we talk about a lot of the stuff in the industry, and people can just sit back and go, "You guys know nothing. You guys are just podcasts. You're just gamers. You guys never run businesses like this." But I will tell you that as we've been doing this more and more through the years, Mav, we've heard some big time people who are in the industry running $1 billion franchises come out and say a lot of the same things we have. And it's pretty crazy when this happens. But Strauss came out
I feel like
a
we've been the
couple,
outliers in a lot of this stuff, Pong.
and,
You
and,
know?
and some of it we've been in the forefront. We talk about it because we take such satellite views, RTS views, like Steel likes to say, because
Yeah.
we pull ourselves back and we try to talk about this stuff from a big view. It's not just fanboy talk all the time. It's big view, that we do read the business stuff, that we do like the chess moves, that we are passionate about not just the gaming aspect, but also everything else that comes along with that in the industry. You don't have to be a CEO of a gaming company or a dev in a gaming company to understand some basic concepts and look at them and say, "Hey, I can kind of see where this is going." So they asked Strauss. She asked Strauss about his thoughts on the future of gaming and if gaming had plateaued. And obviously, this was leading into this was after the ABK talk, which we'll get into in detail. But she asked him, where she thought gaming was as an entertainment business. She went through, how big it's gotten and all that kind of stuff. And she asked him if they were peaking, and Strauss said no, not even close, not even close to peaking in the gaming market. And he explained why. He talked about the average age of a gamer is still around 35, 36 years old at this point. And he said because people tend to carry the hobbies that they had when they were in their teens into their adult life, even though it may change here and there and a little bit here and there. He goes, we have not reached a peak. He goes, we've got approximately 20 more years before this industry peaks. He said, we've got 20 more years. That's a long ass time. Why I mentioned this point is because when we talk about what Xbox is looking at, what Microsoft is looking at, if you've listened to us, we don't talk about the short term, and we don't say Microsoft is looking at the short term. They're just looking at how they can take advantage of Call of Duty. They're buying Activision Blizzard King for 10, 15, 20 years down the road and where this industry is going to be at. And we've been talking about that for a long time here. And then the other interesting point that he brought up was transmedia, which we've been talking about, Mav, with Embracer Group, and they're looking at it and how important all of this was, that you have these IP that are transmedia. Well, Strauss decided to start talking about, she asked him about streaming and about movies, because they were talking about how the movies have dropped off, whereas gaming has gotten bigger and all that kind of stuff. And she asked, about the movie situation and about big budgets on movies and games. And he said that the movie industry is going to go back and they are going to figure out that you can't just do it with streaming, that you can't just do it through theaters, that you can't just do it through Hulu. You can't have all these subscriptions out there, that you're going to have consolidation within that industry as well. And that he said studios are going to stop spending so much money on certain IP, and they're going to go back to the older days where they were very selective about what they spent a lot of money on, but they were going to get back to smaller production schedules. They weren't going to do these big blockbusters all the damn time. They're not going to have the Amazon spending $1 billion on Ring of Power for the first season, etc. He thought it was going to go back. And I thought that was interesting because gaming eventually will reach that point as well, because we hear Jim Ryan complaining about the big, well, not complaining, but just making facts that, an average AAA game now is $150 million. You got to sell 20 million copies, and all this kind of stuff. It's going to be interesting to watch gaming also get to that point, where the game companies themselves decide that, hey, this isn't sustainable. But to Strauss's point as well, this industry is so dynamic because it has such a variety of different types of games and value as far as what's being made and what's being put out there. You got the big stuff and you got really tiny stuff, and it's still expanding and it's still growing for the next 20 years, as he said. So Really interesting interview. You can go back and watch it for sure. But they asked him specifically about the ABK deal, which is what we want to talk about here, Matt. ABK.
Did the interviewer seem hostile to you at some points?
That's her shtick.
Right.
That's the same lady that interviewed Strauss and Phil. I think it was a year and a half ago or whatever it was. That's kind of her shtick. Yes, she's aggressive, and yes, she talks over people, and yes, she will interrupt big time people like Strauss Zelnick without a second thought. She just blurts out her thoughts. So yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. The ABK deal, I understood why people took it as, oh God, she's pro Sony. Okay, look, that lady could care. She looks at it from the business side of things. She don't care about Sony or Xbox.
I think she probably doesn't know anything about it. She just looks up talking points before the conversation.
Exactly. And she saw that there's discourse, that there's a bunch of people unhappy that Call of Duty could be, made exclusive one day. And she just rolled with it. And she hit him with the, when she asked Strauss about this, and he said there's not a problem with it. And she said, well, a lot of gamers are going to have a problem with it. And he was like, whatever. So I'm going to read this from Windows Central here. This is by Jez. He broke it down. So Take-Two CEO has some positive comments for Xbox Activision deal. What you need to know. Bullet point number 1, Microsoft is trying to acquire Activision Blizzard, known for the gaming franchises like Call of Duty, Warcraft, and Diablo. Thanks, Jez. We had no idea about this. Bullet point 2, the deal is expected to close by the summer of 2023, but needs regulatory approval to go ahead. Bullet point 3, at least one more gaming CEO has thrown its weight behind the deal, saying that it's a good thing for the industry. Microsoft's lumbering Activision Blizzard deal continues with more and more regulators approving the acquisition. There's $72 billion on the line, which will give Xbox command and control of franchises like Call of Duty, Warcraft, Candy Crush, and many, many more. The deal is, of course, controversial. Sony's PlayStation arm has been vocally opposed to the deal, with claims that it will hurt their competitive advantage. Of course, regulators aren't here to protect corporations' profits, but instead foster healthy competition between said corporations. Some have wondered whether gaining control of some of the world's biggest gaming franchises might give Microsoft an undue amount of power. Microsoft has repeatedly bitten back, however, saying that even after the deal, they still won't be the largest company by revenue, while also noting that Nintendo has done absolutely fine without access to franchises like Call of Duty or World of Warcraft. Another company has sat up and spoken out about the deal this past week. It's Take-Two's Interactive Strauss Zelnick, CEO over games like Borderlands, Grand Theft Auto, and Red Dead Redemption. Take-Two also purchased mobile heavyweight Zynga just a short while ago to better position itself in a rapidly evolving gaming landscape. In comments to Yahoo Business via Benji Sales, Zelnick reportedly welcomed the deal. In Yahoo stating that Zelnick sees the deal. Why is there an ad in my way? God, Windows Central. Seriously.
Is it a Manscaped ad?
No, it's not. Something stupid. There. Okay, got it rid of it. Nope, now it came back again. God dang you. All right. Keep on reading.
Gotta stop Googling for those penis enlargements, Pong.
Yeah, no, there's some
those ads are gonna show up.
It was food advertisement, for God's sake.
Sausage?
Man. Yeah, sausages. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Why? Stop seeing this ad. Already bought this. I'll try not to show that ad again. Thank you. Try not to show that ad again. Okay. Come on. This is why it sucks being on a phone like this. Shit blocks everything. My God, sorry, chat. Okay. So where was I? Zelnick reportedly welcomed the deal, with Yahoo stating that Zelnick sees Microsoft as an ally. The GTA CEO also noted that all gaming titles stand alone and compete freely. Mm-hmm. It's a comment echoed by Microsoft itself, who has long referred to the rise of similar indie games like Minecraft and Among Us that can proliferate out of nowhere due to the openness of platforms like Steam and become million-dollar, billion-dollar businesses in their own right. Quote, ultimately, the consumer votes. And if we create great hits, which is our business, then consumers will show up, and no one can take that away from us. The entertainment business is the antithesis of a fungible commoditized business. Every title stands alone, so it sort of doesn't compete with anything else, and yet it's highly competitive in a way. In other words, we compete with everything and we compete with nothing. You can't replace one of our titles with another title. Comments will undoubtedly be sweet to Microsoft's ears as it turns its attention to regulators in Europe and the United States following their win in Brazil. The European Union has already requested feedback from publishers within its economic zone, and doubtless Zelnick's comments are likely in line with that of Take-Two itself will submit as an entity. Microsoft expects the deal to close around the end of fiscal year 2023, which would be around June of next year. So, Mav, I don't know if you got to watch the interview. I don't know if you read up on the interview.
I watched I watched most of it.
Most of it.
Yeah.
Strauss is absolutely, again, you got to go watch his stuff.
Sharp guy, man. He's great. He's like he's using a lot of big words, but in ways that make sense.
Yes, to the common person.
It's not like the people that throw out big words just to sound smart, like using them actually properly and actual like where it makes sense. And it's like, oh yeah, that's really intelligent. Actually, like what that makes things a lot clearer. Thanks.
What did you take out of his interview, Matt? What did you take away from this?
I felt it was really good. I felt it was strong. I liked to hear a lot of his answers, and it kind of echoed what most common sense people see about the gaming industry, right? And the comment about not competing against any one thing, but competing against everything, right? Yes. Is very true, because really what you're competing with is against is for time,
correct?
Right, and engagement from the player, and you want players to spend more time on your games than they spend in other games, right? And they want that word of mouth to spread, and they want your game to be popular, right? Like, so, but that being said, like, there's always, makes a good point. You never know when that next thing is going to come up, right? Games do it all the time. There was a time before Fortnite existed, right? There was a time before Minecraft existed, right? There was a time before Call of Duty became what it was today, and there will be the next thing, and we don't know what it is right now, right? But there will be 100%. And at some point, we'll find out what it is, what's going to take over the industry, what's going to become the thing that changes gaming and becomes a huge thing, and for the regulators and everything, I think to look at things as if everything were to be set in stone. It's gaming right now, the way it is today, and what the impact would be on a certain competitor if nothing ever changed, right? Then that's the wrong. You can't look at things. You can't predict the future. And I know it's part of their job, a lot of the regulators to try and predict the future, right? But in a environment that is so competitive with so many different players and so dynamic as gaming, you can't really do that. It's not as simple as like a couple players and only one asset, that they're all using to be able to make money off of. There's game devs are getting empowered daily with updates in technology to be able to create bigger and better games than they've ever been able to before. So you can have a small team make a game that looks as beautiful as Scorn does, right? Or like any of these games, you can have multiplayer games take off from a small team, and not everything has to even come from the big players anymore. And I think the big players actually see that, and they're like, well, we got to step up our game, right? Because guess what? Johnny Schmo over there and his team of 3 can make a game that can compete with our game now, right? So you never know what's going to happen. I mean, and to their point too, like a few years back, who ever heard of Embracer Group, and now one of the biggest players in gaming, right? So there's never going to be, well, you can't say never because you know what's going to happen, but at least for the long foreseeable future, there's not going to be any kind of detriment to competition in the gaming space, right? Just because of a few franchises that may potentially one day become exclusive to one platform. What was interesting is his comments, just basically talking about that in comparison to, the movie industry and streaming services and stuff. And I think he's right. Like you can't just do one thing,
Right.
And you're seeing changes with a lot of different things, and everything's fluid, Entertainment's interesting, man. Like it's weird when like the entertainment industry is trying to be regulated against possible future situations, right? Because to be honest with you, the entire entertainment industry is extremely fluid, especially movies and video games, right? And the environment we're in now. So I think he was making some great points. Was talking about competition and how specific games. For example, let's say that like Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, right? And it's like exclusive to a platform. Would that make sense? Not necessarily for 2K, right? Because there's so many different, much more potential for that game to be on multiple platforms, even if they get a big fat check, right?
Right.
Now, if you were to take that game away altogether, would gaming still exist? Would there still be competition? I mean, we're talking about the potential future of one of the biggest games of all time, right? Grand Theft Auto 5 is one of the biggest games of all time. It still is today. GTA Online is massive hit still today. If you were to take that away, would gaming still be competitive? Would there still be lots of things to play? Would there be maybe an opening and those players start spending time somewhere else? Yes. So there's always going to be shifting and moving. And it's just, I like hearing these big CEOs of these publishers kind of like side with Microsoft here. You know what I mean? Because it's not really any benefit or detriment to them in any one way necessarily to be with Microsoft's side on this. Like, could they potentially sell more of their games if Call of Duty is exclusive to Xbox? Maybe, but at the same point, they don't really compete 1-to-1 with each other. You know what I mean? Like, so it's interesting. It sounds like a smart guy. And he's also somebody who's been on record in an interview with Phil saying he doesn't like day one Game Pass games.
Right. Which, like you just pointed out, for games like Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, doesn't make sense because they know what the sales are guaranteed to be. So that point, unless Microsoft drops off the biggest bag ever to get it into Game Pass, no, it wouldn't make sense from that standpoint when you've got one of the biggest games on the planet to drop it into Game Pass. It wouldn't.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense for. I don't even think it would make sense for, like, if you in one way it makes sense to try and get a third party game to be exclusive to your platform because you're not risking the loss of your own sales, right?
Correct.
But to make your own like big time entity that has a fan base across multiple platforms already, especially one where the primary fan base lies. To take that away from them and expect all those people to come along to your ecosystem, it's not a very reasonable expectation. You know, I don't think that Microsoft would expect that either.
Did you take his quote where he said, I took it as a swipe at Sony's complaints when he said, look, if we make a great game, people will come and no one can take that away from us. I felt that was a swipe at Sony for their we can't compete without Call of Duty.
Right.
It's just as going, what do you mean? We don't own Call of Duty, but again, we compete. But like he was saying, we don't compete against anybody, but we compete against everybody. But he's saying, look, at the end of the day, Sony, make a great game and people are going to show up on your platform no matter what.
Yeah.
That's how that's going to work.
I would think most gamers would even agree with that also.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you were just to ask them straight up, hey, what's going to make people play a game?
Right.
The game is good.
Right.
Give me good game, I play. Like it's simple. As simple as that, right? And I feel like it's such a simple argument to be able to make against such a convoluted question. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
correct.
Yeah, well, we can't compete without Call of Duty on PlayStation because guess what? That's our biggest moneymaker and all this kind of stuff, right? Well, okay, well, you just bought Bungie and they have one of the biggest first-person shooter development studios out there, and most successful gaming franchise, one of the most successful gaming franchises out there, and you're making new games right now. You're saying they can't make something that's going to take off and be successful. Who knows, right? You can't predict this stuff. And the thing is, you make it, they will come. Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. You build it, they will come. Right? Build a good first-person shooter, Sony, and they will come. Right? Halo can't even compete with Call of Duty. Right? It's a great game. Obviously, they've got a lot of content issues right now. But guess what? Being only on the Xbox and PC ecosystem
Yeah.
hurts the potential for Halo to grow as massively as it could, right?
Right.
Right. If Halo was multi-platform, it could be even more successful than it was as a franchise before. It's just
correct.
But guess what? People still play it because it's a good game, right? People still play Forza because it's a good game. Xbox cornered the racing market last generation, right?
Yeah.
Because they made good games, right?
Right.
Sony, make something other than third-person action adventure games, and guess what? You'll start selling those games too, right? It doesn't have to be third party. You can make your own. I have faith.
And they've done it. They've done it in the past. They've done it before. Again, there's a reason why 30 million copies sold of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's because it's a great game to a lot of people, right? So this whole non-compete thing because we lose Call of Duty is so ridiculous. Well, let's get into more of the ridiculousness here, Mav. So as everybody kind of knows by now, we got more comments from both Sony and then a response from Microsoft. So of course we're going to start with the Sony side first because they were first up, and then we'll get into the Microsoft response afterwards. So I'm going to read from VGC, great article by Andy Robinson. Go follow him, great dude. I saw Grub had him on Giant Bomb this week. He's a good dude. He's been in the industry for a long time, both as a journalist and he started doing dev work as well, and then came back to journalism. But he's a really good guy. His article, I'm going to skip the first part of his article. I'm just going to jump down to the meaty part of Sony's complaints recently that the CMA has revealed. But his article is Sony tells regulators Call of Duty players are likely to switch to Xbox even without exclusivity. So I'm going to jump down here to where he talks about Sony's comments. However, in an extensive document published by the CMA, it's revealed that Sony Interactive Entertainment believes that even if Microsoft is true to its word on keeping the series multi-format, it could still add exclusive features to Xbox versions of Call of Duty games to the point where it would likely influence players' choice of console. Quote, SIE told the CMA that even if Call of Duty games remain available on the PlayStation following the merger, the merged entity would still be able to engage in partial foreclosure by increasing the differentiation between the versions of Call of Duty available on Xbox and PlayStation, the document reads. End quote. Quote, according to SIE, gamers may expect that Call of Duty on Xbox will include extra content and enhanced interlopability with the console hardware, in addition to any benefits from membership in Xbox Game Pass. SIE submitted that these factors are likely to influence gamers' choice of console. Andy Robinson goes on to point out, Sony should know how much pull exclusive Call of Duty content has on consumers' choices, console choices, as for much of the past decade, it had its own exclusivity deal in place for the series. For the last several years, a marketing deal has seen PlayStation users receive content updates before other platforms, as well as exclusive bonuses such as free item bundles. Previously, Xbox had the exact same content deal in place during the Xbox 360 generation. Before it expires, Sony's Call of Duty deal is believed to cover this year's Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 and a new game from Black Ops developer Treyarch, which may not arrive until 2024. Microsoft's head of gaming Phil Spencer claimed in September that he had provided Sony a signed agreement pledging feature and content parity in future Call of Duty games for at least several more years beyond the expiration of the existing Sony contract. While the Xbox exec claimed the offer goes well beyond typical gaming industry agreements, Sony's Ryan told GameIndustries.biz that the company isn't satisfied with the proposal. All right, so he goes on to kind of break down more of it. So the balls on this guy, Mav, the balls on this guy. Listen, I said from the beginning, Jim is doing what he needs to do to protect his business. He doesn't care what we all think out here in the gaming world. If the tables were returned, I would expect Xbox to have some major concerns as well. Obviously, with Sony's history, they'd be a little bit more valid in some ways. But I would expect that Phil would be going to the regulatory bodies and saying similar things as to why Sony probably should not have control of this. They're there to protect their businesses, okay? But the hypocritical, like, this is an all-time high right here with these latest talking points from Sony to the CMA, Mav. The fact that they're sitting here talking about that, even if it's not exclusive, if Xbox follows through on its promises and they keep it, that Sony is worried that some of its players might swap over to Xbox because Xbox might include additional content, exclusive content, that they may receive benefits from Game Pass, and it being in Game Pass, that maybe the Xbox version might not be actually in parity with the Sony PlayStation 5 version. Brother, like I said, this is a new level for me. I was like, yo, the fact that Sony completely, Paul Tassi wrote an article about this too, just blowing this out of the water. The fact that Sony is blatantly saying, yeah, we know we got this marketing deal that includes almost all of this stuff that we're complaining about. We're just going to go ahead and ignore that. Ignore that, CMA. Ignore that, gamers. Ignore that, journalists. That doesn't count. We can't have Microsoft in control of this stuff and doing that exact same thing that we've been paying for this whole time. Mav, how much gall, how big of balls Jim Ryan and Sony have to even put this in writing to the CMA?
I just want to know how much practice it takes to be able to lie and be that hypocritical with it and keep a straight face. You know, like, is it like practice in front of a mirror? You know what I mean? Like, how many times does he break a pen when trying to write this? Like, it's like laughing too much. I'm gonna go out on a limb and just say something here. Jim, you're right. PlayStation gamers, not all of them, but there will be some, will move on and go get an Xbox. It's going to happen after this deal goes through. So, Jim, grab that pill and swallow it right now. It may go down harsh. It's going to be okay. It'll get better. There is no way in hell that this deal goes through and it doesn't impact Sony. But right. Guess what? It doesn't fucking matter. Because guess what? Gaming is more than just PlayStation. Ego check, Jim. Gaming is more important than just PlayStation retaining #1 status in the console space.
How dare you, Mav? How dare you?
In a world where Sony and PlayStation have dominated the last generation of gaming by doing such things as exclusivity agreements and exclusive content agreements, even with things such as an exclusive quest in Hogwarts Legacy, all these DLC and, you know, early map packs, beta exclusives, and all this shit with Call of Duty over the last 10 years, which Xbox did beforehand. I guess Jim would be an expert on this situation, realizing how much of an impact it can make on your business. Because they've been riding that wave to be #1. Guess what? They started riding that wave when they were about 50-50 in the 360 PS3 generation. That's when about that turn happened, isn't it, Pong Soul?
You will be correct.
When that turn happened, when Xbox lost those marketing rights and PlayStation paid, and then all of a sudden the big shift and you had the whole Xbox One fiasco, guess what? PlayStation rode that wave and they realized this is our way to success, baby. We're going to stop trying to make our own first-person shooters. We're going to stop trying to make our own things. We're going to put all our money back into COD because guess what? It's going to make the biggest impact from us because it's the #1 game in gaming. So we're going to take COD and we're going to make sure that everybody's aware that the best place to play is on PlayStation. They did the same thing with Destiny. Guess what? That's why they bought Bungie. You don't think there's going to be that same kind of shit going down with Destiny in the future? With future Bungie games? Is there? I mean, who knows? Those are going to be multiplats. Can they not do that now? Are they saying is PlayStation saying that we are not going to have exclusive content or features in future Destiny and future Bungie games right now? Is that what they're saying? Are they saying that is outlawed, that they're too good for that now? I mean, because they bought Bungie. They have now, obviously Bungie still maintains control over the content, right? Supposedly. But they bought Bungie for a reason. Did they not? I mean, the games are already on PlayStation. Jim, you're talking out of your ass, bro. You're making yourself look like a moron. Okay, I understand. It's to protect your gamers, your investment, your company. You know what I mean? But dude, hypocrisy 101 here. Just look at it's. I think he realizes how short of memory a lot of the people have, and it's just like they don't even realize the world we live in right now. He's making these kind of statements in the same time period where they're announcing exclusive content stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they just did like last month.
Harry Potter, anybody?
Hello. Like, can the CMA and people that are reading these kind of bullshit arguments not like just see through that? It is absolutely insane. And yes, again, PlayStation, you're going to take a hit, you know, but if you come out fighting, you come out swinging and really try and have competition, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right.
Now, let me ask you this off of this comments from Sony. Rand brought this up the other day in his video, and you and I have talked about this, and this is why I'm bringing it up. We've specifically talked about this. In fact, we just talked about this a few weeks ago. But Rand, and that's why I do listen to other people in the community, because I do like getting different perspectives. We might all have the same mindset, but sometimes people pick out different things out of this. And I gotta say, Mab, I'm starting to question our defense of the parity clause. I'm starting to second guess myself on this, and Rand brought it up. Every single time Sony starts talking about Microsoft's control of Call of Duty, they bring up that
parity.
They bring up the fact that Xbox might have the better version. And I'm starting to question, Mav, whether behind the scenes, and I said this on World of Gaming today with Boxenberger too, I'm really starting to think that maybe behind the scenes, yeah, the parity clause might be a standard thing across the industry. It might truly mean what, you know, we've talked to other people about, that we've talked about, all that kind of stuff, that's truly there, and that's something that both Xbox and Sony use. But behind the scenes, Sony has used, as we've seen them do in so many cases, their number one position, their market power across the world, that they've used that behind the scene with the devs and said, you know, obviously off the record, but have used their strength to say, look, even if you can make it better on Xbox Series consoles, you better not. I'm starting to question whether or not that's the case here, Mav, and that's why we've seen, outside of the 120 frames aspect of it, that's why we've seen such a small difference in you know, like visuals as far as, you know, 4K and that kind of stuff. I'm starting to question whether or not Sony actually has said to the devs, look, keep it close. Keep it close. Even if you can do more, keep it close. Because they are really concerned about this map. Because they know full well if Call of Duty is first party, of course Microsoft is not going to hold the parity line. They're not going to do that. If Activision devs get down to business with a first party title, even if it's being multi-plat, and they can push the Series X a little bit more, and they can get a little bit more out of it, resolution-wise, frame-wise, whatever the case may be, they're not going to hold back as a first party. I'm really starting to question, Matt, whether or not that's something.
You make a good point. It's an interesting way of looking at it too, because, you know, it's going from a third-party franchise being owned by a first-party platform holder, where they're going to have access, obviously, to like all this stuff. And I mean, that goes into potential like stuff we're talking to other developers and learning things as well, and technology that Microsoft has and all these different things that they'd be able to utilize, right? that they may have not been able to
Yeah.
before. So there's potential a world where, because of, like taglines like we've heard in the past, like velocity architecture and, RDNA 2.0, like all these things that, Xbox has built into the box, right? Like, I guess they have more dedicated hardware for ray tracing built into the machine, as opposed to PlayStation has to use like more software based stuff. I'm not a tech guy. I don't understand a lot. I'm
Right.
reiterating points I've heard made throughout numerous people in the community, but it all adds up, and I've done my research, and that all checks out, right? Now, if a game like Madden is probably marketed by it, has marketing rights with Xbox, right? A game like Madden is capable of doing 120 frames on Xbox, but not PlayStation, right? So for that game, the parity clause obviously didn't take into effect, at least with that, right? But I wonder if they can, because they would have first party control over the franchise, if they could take it even further, and would it be to the benefit of the gamer that they could do so, and would PlayStation potentially hold it back?
Right.
And maybe that's happening in more games than we know about.
Right.
Potentially. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, I think third party companies obviously are more in line with more of a wide scale scope of their games, and not just focusing on certain platforms. But when you do maintain control as a platform holder, all of a sudden things may open up a little bit more with potential that you could push,
Yep.
So that's interesting. And I think Sony may be onto something with the fact that PlayStation game Call of Duty may not be up to snuff with the Xbox version after this deal's done. But guess what? Again, Jim, I don't give a shit. like if that makes the game better for me and for all the players that get to play the best version of the game, I don't care. You've been fucking paying for like stupid little content stuff to like give an advantage for a long time. So if it can perform better because of hardware, you know what I mean? That's not on Xbox. That's on PlayStation for not having a better performing console. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to. I think the PlayStation's a great console. I enjoy it. Games look fantastic. Some games even run better on a PlayStation than an Xbox for one reason or another. A lot of games run better on an Xbox than a PlayStation, right?
Right.
It just depends on the dev and like lead platform development, porting. All these factors go into it. But when you have first party control over them, obviously there's more availability to your tech than would go any other for others, right? So. Yeah, I would think that all of a sudden Xbox and PC would be the primary development thought process within Activision Blizzard games. And all of a sudden, you know what? Hey, PlayStation gets a copy, you know what, as well.
Yep.
And, you pay $70 for this and enjoy it at your version that you get. And guess what? Wow, look what we can do on our hardware. Maybe there's something to that. But is that wrong? No. Nope. No, all those parity clauses have limitations of hardware aspect in there, right? With that language as well. So, you know what I mean? If that's a limitation, then it's a limitation, and it is what it is.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Maybe the
Sony may have been using it.
Maybe the PS5 Pro, would be up to snuff with the Series X,
but maybe the Series X will get a mid-gen too, and all of a
who
sudden
knows?
It'll be a leap ahead again. So
who knows, man?
Boxenberger thinks 2024, 2025. So we'll see. All right. So let's get down with a little bit more here. I'm going to hop over to one of my favorite websites, gamesindustry.biz, in an article published by Christopher Dring. Again, another good follow on Twitter. He does interact. If you respond to his stuff, a lot of times he will talk to you and he will discuss the situation, and he doesn't come. He's very unbiased. He might not say things you like, and I saw him get into a couple different discussions with people this week over his comments on the ABK deal, but he was taking it really from a neutral standpoint and just what his opinions were.
I think sometimes people would look at the headlines, and it's a little clickbaity headlines too, and without reading the articles, because I've noticed that GameIndustry.biz tends to have, in some way, and this goes for every website now pretty much, tends to have heavily weighted headlines, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
That draw you in one way or another. And then the actual article reads like a neutral piece,
Neutral piece, correct. And Christopher Dring, I think, does an excellent job. So his article was UK regulators detail concerns over Microsoft proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Xbox responds. The CMA expects the deal to impact PlayStation and game streaming. The Competition and Markets Authority has detailed its concerns over Microsoft's proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard. The UK regulator is seen as the key element as to whether this deal would be allowed to go ahead. The deal did not pass the initial phase of approval because now we know Microsoft said, yeah, let's just go to phase 2. We're done with you guys. And has been sent to a second phase. Now the group has cited its concerns over the deal. Microsoft has responded to them. The impact on PlayStation and other rivals. The CMA is concerned that the deal will harm PlayStation and other multi-game subscriptions offerings as Microsoft may withhold Activision Blizzard content from them. The body is also concerned that Microsoft may use Activision Blizzard alongside other Microsoft services to outcompete rivals such as Google, Amazon, and Nvidia. Google is no longer part of the equation in the game streaming space. There's a realistic prospect of a substantial lessening of competition in gaming consoles, multi-game subscription services, and cloud gaming services, the firm said in an extensive document. The CMA points to the network effect of the console market, where a console with a lot of gamers attracts more content, which in turn attracts more gamers, obviously. And the firm is concerned that the acquisition of Call of Duty and any potential exclusivity on Xbox will create a sizable network effect on Microsoft's platform. Quote, the CMA is concerned that having full control over this powerful catalog, especially in light of Microsoft's already strong position in the gaming consoles, operating systems, and cloud infrastructure, could result in Microsoft harming consumers by impairing Sony's, Microsoft's closest gaming rival, ability to compete, as well as that of other existing rivals and potential new entrants who could otherwise bring healthy competition through innovative multi-gaming subscription services and cloud gaming services. Subscriptions are a key part of the concerns, as the CMA believes it's possible, even likely, that without this deal, Activision Blizzard games may have come to other subscription services too. The CMA recognizes that ABK's newest games are not currently available on any subscription service on the day of release, but considers that this may change as subscription services continue to grow. After the merger, Microsoft would gain control of this important input and could use it to harm the competitiveness of its rivals. In terms of streaming, the CMA's concerns are around Microsoft's potential in this market due to its ownership of the Azure cloud gaming service, plus its PC operating system. It believes that there's a chance that this, coupled with the ownership of Activision Blizzard, will give Microsoft an unparalleled advantage over other cloud streaming providers. These unsupported theories, quote, these unsupported theories of harm are not sufficient to justify a reference to phase 2, Microsoft said in its detailed response to the decision. In terms of the CMA's concerns over the impact on PlayStation, Microsoft says there are numerous reasons why these concerns are misplaced. It cites PlayStation's current market-leading position with a console install base of 150 million versus Xbox install base of 63.7 million. It also says that Sony's current market leadership has seen it conduct practices such as raising the price of its console without fear of losing the market share. This follows the recent news that Sony was increasing the price of PS5s following rising production costs. In statements shared with GamesIndustry.biz, Microsoft argued, quote, the suggestion that the incumbent market leader with clear and enduring market power could be foreclosed by the third largest provider as a result of losing access to one title is not credible, end quote. Microsoft posted through, although doesn't share any of the figures, that if every single Call of Duty player on Sony's console would switch to Xbox, quote, the PlayStation gamer base remaining would be significantly larger than Xbox. So they're stating that even if every single Call of Duty player on PlayStation switched over to Xbox, PlayStation would still have a bigger install base no matter what. Microsoft also talked about the levels of content available on Sony's platform, pointing out some of Sony's recent but significantly smaller acquisitions. The company says there were over 280 first and third party exclusive titles on PlayStation in 2021, which was nearly 5 times as many as Xbox. Quote, in short, Sony is not vulnerable to a hypothetical foreclosure strategy, and the referral decision incorrectly relies on self-serving statements by Sony, which significantly exaggerate the importance of Call of Duty to it and neglect to account for Sony's clear ability to competitively respond, Microsoft added. Quote, while Sony may not welcome increased competition, it has the ability to adapt and compete. Gamers will ultimately benefit from this increased competition and choice, end quote. Once again, Microsoft reiterated its intention to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation consoles. It stated that taking Call of Duty away from PlayStation would alienate the fan base and to, quote, tarnish both the Call of Duty and Xbox brands, end quote. Microsoft argued that bringing Activision Blizzard games to Game Pass, which is the company's biggest motivation behind the deal, would offer gamers more choice in how they access content. Microsoft made no suggestion it would also make Call of Duty available on other subscription services. However, the company observed that as Game Pass isn't available on PlayStation, the CMA's concerns that such a deal would tip subscription services in Xbox favor is not accurate. Microsoft also believes that with the continued popularity of traditional buy-to-play and free-to-play models means that Game Pass will always face strong competition. Microsoft concluded this area of the CMA's concerns by saying that if gamers do choose to leave PlayStation for Xbox, it will be because Xbox is offering choice in its approach to how games can be bought. Quote, should any consumers decide to switch from a gaming platform that does not give them a choice as to how to pay for their new games, PlayStation, to one that does, Xbox, then that is the sort of consumer switching behavior that the CMA should consider welfare enhancing and indeed encourage. It is not something that CMA should be trying to prevent. Streaming concerns. The second area of CMA's concerns is around Microsoft using Activision Blizzard to become dominant in the gaming streaming area by using that content along Microsoft's own cloud service provider, Azure, plus its PC operating system. This is one of the more complicated areas to analyze, and is talking about a part of the games business that is still early in the stages of development. Microsoft believes the CMA's concerns here are flawed, as currently Microsoft's xCloud gaming service does not use Azure and does not stream games from PC hardware. Quote, there is no advantage, the company said. Indeed, Xbox considers that it faces a number of significant disadvantages as compared to rival providers of infrastructure for game streaming. The CMA is concerned that the Activision Blizzard deal, along with the other products at Microsoft's disposal, could raise barriers to entry and potentially foreclose rivals in cloud gaming services. However, Microsoft insisted that blocking potential competitors in the game streaming space runs counter to the objective of making a successful distribution model in the first place. Quote, consumer adoption of cloud gaming remains low, it said. Quote, harming or degrading rival services would significantly set back adoption of this technology, protecting marketing leading incumbents, i.e. Sony on console, Apple and Google on mobile, as well as Steam on PC. Quote, Xbox as a platform, which is in last place in console, 7th place in PC, and nowhere in mobile game distribution globally, has no incentive to do this. Instead, its incentive is to encourage the widespread adoption of cloud gaming technologies by as many providers as possible to encourage a major shift of consumer behavior required for cloud gaming to succeed. All right, that was a lot, Math.
Yeah.
But some of the highlights there have got to be Xbox basically saying what you just said in our last comments. Like, Jim, who cares? Who cares if people switch? If every single Call of Duty player left your console for Xbox, you would still be the market leader. And they obviously have access to those internal numbers. They obviously know how many gamers are gaming on PlayStation right now and play Call of Duty. And they're still saying, Matt, significantly more than Xbox, even if every single one of them left. Matt, when you hear Microsoft take off the gloves, because this really is, right? First of all, they're coming after the CMA for parroting Sony's talking points. As we talked about when we first heard a lot of the talking points, it was like, my God, Sony wrote this. Like, this is like straight up out of Jim Ryan's, typewriter. because you know he uses a typewriter. He doesn't use a computer. You know that for a fact. Jim Ryan ain't like that. And then, next up, they go after Sony directly and say, what are you guys talking about here? What is it that you guys are actually saying? Because none of what you are saying makes any sense from our position down here. And yes, of course, Xbox is going to say this, but they're saying stats don't lie. The facts don't lie. The numbers are out here. You guys can see it. Even if the worst case scenario happened, there's no way you guys are closing up shop because you lost Call of Duty. That ain't going to happen. And then they called him out for their same tactics that they've been using this entire time, Mav, as position, as the market leader to gain popularity, to become the number one for decades now. Mav, what'd you think about Microsoft pulling off the gloves here? Did Sony poke the bear too much? Are we finally to the point where we see a pissed off Satya, a pissed off Phil, a pissed off legal team like, hey, enough's enough. Like, we put up with this for a while, but like, look, now you guys are way overboard. What do you think here?
I think it goes back to when the CMA made their tweets public, and then also Jim Ryan made his statements public as well, challenging Phil Spencer like personally. I think it still goes back to that. I think since then we've seen them like we talked at that point. Are they going to respond? How are they going to respond? I think this is part of that response. They just took their time and did it in like a professional way, right? Instead of just like Phil and Jim going at it one like with statements, Since then, we've seen Satya say, "Let us have competition," publicly on an interview.
Yep.
Right. Since then, we've now seen these bullet points that were dropped, which I don't even know. Like, was this like sent as an email to the CMA? Like, where did this come from exactly? You know what I mean?
They're part of the official question and answer disclosure statements from all the publishers.
Okay, so this was Microsoft's answers to.
Yeah, this is Microsoft's response to them, correct?
Okay, so
this was them going from phase 1 to phase 2. Remember when Microsoft had an opportunity to show document? Basically, Microsoft said, let's go to phase 2, because phase 2, for people who don't know, the phase 1 is held by one group of the CMA. If it goes to phase 2, it's supposedly a whole new group of regulators that look at phase 2 because they dive in deeper. So it's a whole new group of people. So Microsoft was like, yeah, screw you guys at phase 1. Let's go to phase 2.
Yeah. I think that a big part of this was just looking at it and saying like, hey, look, y'all are making the most ridiculous argument that could be made with this deal. Like, we expected a challenge, right? We expected this to be investigated. We expected the due diligence and all this stuff and have to answer a lot of questions and, have all this paperwork submitted and long process. But to take the word of the industry leader and just basically parrot that and use that as your reasoning for everything publicly is like, now we have to play the public game, right? And I feel like they're coming out with this in a response and against Sony, against the CMA, and against a lot of the journalism that I see out there still today as well. I've noticed like, man, the Sony bias is still so strong out there. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people love PlayStation. I love PlayStation, but it doesn't mean like I don't love gaming more. You know what I mean? Like, I prefer Xbox, obviously. Like, I'm just very clear. I have an Xbox podcast, but I don't want Sony to fail as a company. I don't want them to go under. You know what I mean?
Right.
And for anybody that making this out to be that is absolutely off the wall, like way out there. Like, it's not any realm where that's going to happen from this deal. Right.
Correct.
And that's what they're trying to make it seem like. And that's what Sony's trying to make it seam like. That's what the, CMA is obviously, whoa, look at this. If the industry leader can't succeed without this, how are we going to how are we going to sustain this market and this industry with, protect it from the evils of Microsoft, who's trying to compete? It's like, Microsoft's like, whoa, talking about this because of Call of Duty? Like, yeah, again, it's a big deal, but this is like, that's the last thing like should be even on your concern. I think like Microsoft coming out from the forefront, trying to like say, Sony, like, we'll give you 3 more years at least past the existing agreement. Like they were just kind of trying to chalk that up as saying like, hey, like we know this is gonna suck for you guys, so we're trying to make sure we do right by you as a competitor, and try and lessen the blow here. You know what I mean? And it makes sense. We're probably gonna keep our games multi-plat forever, but we can't make any promises long term because guess what? We don't know what the future gaming holds. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I feel like the uncertainty of the future of gaming is like being used against Microsoft here, right?
Yep.
Nobody knows what the future holds in any of these industries in the entertainment space, what 10 years is going to look like from now. And you can't like narrow focus on one possibility because one gaming franchise ended up becoming potentially exclusive to one platform in the future 7 years from now. What detriment could that have 10, 15 years from now? Oh my god, let's play the guessing game. And oh my god, Sony's out of business now. 15 years ago I just magically made that up in my mind. Oh, we got to close this deal. And that's kind of like what they're echoing. And I think Microsoft is like, hey, you dumbasses. And it's like you guys, have you ever like done this before? CMA? I mean, I know you're like an organization, you got more responsibility recently because now you're trying to go toe to toe with the EU and make a name for yourself. You gotta make sure that you take a stance and go after big tech and make sure you hold companies accountable. But like you don't really seem like you know what you're doing right now. You know what I mean? So like let's like educate you on how ludicrous this argument was that you actually put out there in the public for your reasoning to move into phase 2, right? Because everything you've written down completely looks like you're trying to protect the industry leader and one competitor. That's not what your job is. Your job is to protect Sony from having competition, from potentially losing customers, affecting gamers. Oh my god, having to potentially get a different platform to play one game. Whoa. Oh god, guess what? If I want to play fucking Final Fantasy, guess what I got to do? I got to go buy a fucking PlayStation. Right? Or a PC.
And Microsoft's quote, should any consumers decide to switch from a gaming platform that does not give them a choice as to how to pay for new games, PlayStation, to one that does, Xbox, then that sort of consumer switching behavior is that is the sort of switching behavior that the CMA should consider welfare enhancing and indeed encourage. It's not something that the CMA should be trying to prevent.
Options.
Yes.
Options. Guess what?
That's competition.
Options provide value. Value increases competition. It increases
good for consumers.
Innovation.
Yes.
If you build it, they will come. Right? Again, we've talked about that. PlayStation is not going deep diving into the subscription service yet, right? They're like tiptoeing in right now. They don't have the infrastructure yet to fully support what the future gaming is going to be and everything. And we get that. And I think that they don't want to be ushered along faster than they want to be, right? And this is all part of it. But their whole shtick with this, and I'm going to say it's showmanship from Sony here to the CMA and to the other regulators out there. They're really trying to like sell this as like, an act almost of like how bad this is for them. And like the fact that the CMA was dumb enough to fall for it, that publicly as well, echoing them, you know what I mean, is what rubbed Microsoft the wrong way. Right. And if you have that regulatory body that's supposed to be neutral in this and just coming to a decision and echoing the concerns of one company out there instead of the industry is not how these things are supposed to be done. And I do feel like a Microsoft could be like also poking the bear a little bit. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Because the CMA is obviously trying to prove their worth here, and calling them out, you know what I mean, is also maybe potentially stoking the fire within them to make sure they keep doing that. At the end of the day, they don't have a damn leg to stand on because this whole argument's ridiculous in the first place. They are not going to go to court with Microsoft over something like this. I cannot foresee that potentially. I mean, they would. I just feel like they'd be destroyed. Like they'd absolutely be destroyed. I don't know if they what legs they have to stand on unless you have a jury and judge that. Or I don't even know if there is a jury in a situation like that. But if you have like,
There's not.
right,
There's not. It's
it's
an arbitration
right.
process, according to Luke Steele, who works in M&A over in UK. So he's an attorney. So
Yeah. So with that whole situation, it's like unless you have the decision makers on that side be as ignorant as the CMA is, which is always possible. You know what I mean? But like, who knows? I feel like originally when I saw the whole arguments that the CMA made, I still stand behind what I said then, that it was weak, and I felt stronger about this deal getting done because we all knew they were going to phase 2. The surprising thing was how public they were about it.
yes.
Right? Which I guess Luke said that that's pretty common for them as well, which is just weird, you know, period. Like for everybody else, we're not used to seeing that. But when you're playing the public perception game, which Sony and the CMA are doing now, Xbox is going to do it back. You know, those documents that became public now actually were not publicly released by Microsoft, I believe, or were they released by the CMA?
Because I don't remember where I watched Hoag's video and I forget if it's just released, but I think it's by the CMA.
Right, because I think their publishings became public on the 12th, right?
Yeah. And
from the decision of the September 1st or something like that, right? So that's where a lot of the stuff I believe is coming from now. So it's not, even though I say like Microsoft's challenging that publicly, it's like maybe it's not even them that publicly released it. You know what I mean? It's just very like good answers. Microsoft's answers are good. Yeah.
It shows their confidence in that, man. Like you were talking about, like, hey, if we're gonna do this, let's go. Okay, fine, let's go. We know what we have on our side, and we know how confident we are that your position is absolutely horrible because it's Sony's position, and we know why Sony's doing this because Sony's completely biased to keep the #1 spot, and that's not how this all works. And you guys still have rules that you're supposed to follow, that you have to look at this deal through certain lenses and guidelines. And at the end of the day, when we get to phase 2 and you put those lenses in place, Sony's arguments fall apart. And I think that that's what shows. I mean, again, them coming out and saying, quote, while Sony may not welcome increased competition, it has the ability to adapt and compete. Gamers will ultimately benefit from this increased competition and choice, which is exactly what we said. And them also pointing out the fact that, yeah, Sony's so worried, they just increased the prices on their consoles worldwide, except for the US. Yeah, that's how worried Sony is about their position. No, this is about Sony feeling like they're entitled to the #1 position, that they now have dominated for so long that they just get to stay there because we're Sony, because we're PlayStation, because everybody loves us, because over in the UK and the EU, it's like 80% PlayStation players. Nah, you guys need to protect us from this big bad Microsoft coming along and deciding to change things up. No, Microsoft is like, no, that's not how any of this works. Not how any of this works. Even if you're not going to look at it from like Brazil did, which is fine. Every regulatory body has their own perspective. Brazil came out and flat out said this is about Brazilian consumers, and we have no problem with this. This does not hurt Brazilian consumers in any way. So even if you other regulatory bodies want to look at it from different perspectives, when you lay out the numbers and when you lay out the facts about Sony's ways and how they've done things for 2 decades and what abilities they have, it still falls apart because none of what they say makes any sense outside of the fact. Yeah, it doesn't. They just don't want to lose those profits.
The issue is, Pong, like every argument they make, there's like factual evidential proof going back for years and years and years to completely shut down the argument.
Correct.
Right. So there is no. Exactly. That's why I think in order to potentially officially block the deal down the road, they would have to maybe potentially sue Microsoft. If Microsoft decided to try and do it anyway. I don't know how it works. Right. But I remember recently, like where I'm taking that from is the FTC had recently decided not to sue Amazon. Right. Regarding the MGM thing, which I believe the FTC did not want to allow to go through.
No, they didn't. They came out and said they weren't going to allow it. And Amazon said, Go right
So
ahead.
what?
We're signing. We're doing this.
Right. So they did it anyway, right?
Called the bluff. Yeah, they called the bluff.
And then the FTC decided, well, we can't sue them because we don't have enough legs to stand on, right? And I think eventually, like regardless, I just feel like Microsoft will bully this way through because there's nobody has an official argument that can actually be held up against this. I don't foresee a world where Microsoft doesn't get this deal to go through. It's their biggest acquisition they've made as a company, right? And the argument is being made against this $70 billion deal, which is going to provide advantages for consumers in multiple ways. Provide advantages for the devs, provide more competition to the industry, in which is actually needs more competition from the big players right now. There's no legs to stand on if you're trying to battle this over the sake of one gaming franchise becoming exclusive potentially to a platform.
Correct.
It's not that Call of Duty, this little thing, and so I think it's all been a game all along from Sony trying to get as much of a concession as they possibly can for Call of Duty, right? Now, will Microsoft be willing to sign anything like that? I don't know. And that's what's going to prolong this more than anything, right? That's what's going to prolong this more than anything because that's the number one being talked about. And I don't think Microsoft wants to sign a damn thing.
I think they're willing to a certain point, but now you can see Sony's angle, Matt. They're going to want concessions that Call of Duty comes on to PlayStation Plus. They're going to want concessions that there is parity, that there will never be a difference between the two. They want concessions on all of that. Now you can see their total angle, right? And the big one is that Call of Duty will come on. If you put it on Game Pass, it comes to PlayStation Plus as well. But how the hell can you sign a concession?
Right,
Microsoft
you can't do that. Like it depends on. Like I can see. Okay, all right. How many years do you want? 3 or 5 years beyond the existing deal to potentially bring Call of Duty games to PlayStation? Right. We'll sign a potential something like that. But they're not going to sign something prohibiting themselves from making the game available on their own services, right?
Right.
And maybe they make a deal where they have to put it on PS Plus. Also, I could potentially even foresee something like that for a certain amount of years, right?
But how would that be negotiated? That's not going to be negotiated through the regulatory bodies. Like Microsoft's going to be like, we want X billion dollars to put on PlayStation Plus.
I guess they would have to like look at like what the using previous deals and what the values would be worth. I don't know, man. Like I don't.
You're impossible because Call of Duty's never been on.
That's why the concessions and stuff get so damn tricky, though.
Right.
Because there's no like you're having to make a negotiation of something that's like potentially wouldn't have ever been agreed to in the first place.
Right.
Like, and it's like, just, I don't know. Does it make sense? Like Call of Duty's not even PS Plus now, obviously, right? They wouldn't pony up the money for it. And maybe Call of Duty, Activision Blizzard would never have done it.
Never do it.
Right. So like with that, obviously it's an advantage for Xbox to have that as a first party studio because that gives them the ability to do something like that, right?
Correct.
Guess what? PlayStation, you could do the same damn thing with some of your games. That's how you compete. That's how you get subscriptions into your service. That's why you're afraid right now, because your service sucks and the other one is good. PS Plus Extra is okay if you have not played PlayStation games for a long time, right?
And they've got a decent lineup coming this month.
And they got a good lineup coming up this month again, but all those games have been in Game Pass for a long time, right?
Correct.
You're not going to drive subscriptions in any subscription type service based on old content. You're not. You're going to get some. What if the movie subscriptions we have or shows, like what if Disney Plus had no original content? What if Netflix had no original content coming right away at release? What if HBO now has all these shows and all these different things? Guess what drives the subscriptions is new shit, right?
Correct.
Like, yeah, we like our library of old stuff too. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, it's cool. You go back and watch, all those old Disney movies or whatever, all the old Star
Amazon's
Wars
adding
and
all
Marvels
the bonds
and stuff.
Through the MGM deal.
It's fantastic. Great. Love it.
Yep.
But when you got this big exclusive movie or show or something coming out that's only on that platform, that's what gets people to check it out. Halo and Paramount Plus, right? You have The Last of Us going to HBO and things like that. That's what drives those services and those subscriptions. PlayStation is not being competitive in that industry because they have not even tried yet. So for anybody to go out there and be like they're going to have dominant position on that section of an industry which is small right now, you know what I mean? Like, come on, really? Like, okay, we'll try, and maybe you could actually start making a play, you know, but you haven't been really trying very hard to compete in that because you're too afraid that you're not going to get as many sales on your first party games that you're doing right now. And also the big reason a lot of people are playing is because of those exclusivity agreements. That's what they're spending their money. They're spending their money on outgoing exclusivity deals as opposed to putting some of their games in their services. It's just a different idea, philosophy of how to compete.
What's interesting, Mav, with the services too and the subscriptions is that now Sony with the Brazil said no, it's all one ecosystem, and now it seems like the CMA, they're taking Hoag's advice and trying to break away from that, and now trying to say, well, what about, and the CMA is doing it as well, saying what about xCloud, cloud services, cloud streaming separate, Game Pass subscription services separate, and then console and then PC all being separate. And it seems like suddenly they're now shifting their strategy and trying to say, well, yeah, we got to have this in, we're not going to be able to get this in PlayStation Plus if Xbox has it. Well, you guys just said in Brazil it was all one ecosystem. It was all one area. Yeah. And now you're trying to break it out because maybe the CMA started leading you down that path with like, oh, well, we're going to look at this from separate angles. This cloud streaming is separate. The Xbox Game Pass is separate. The subscription services are separate. And it's interesting to see that dynamic as well, kind of breaking away.
What did Xbox say that like PS4 era had, or no, like it was last year alone, like PlayStation had 280 more exclusive titles than Xbox?
Yeah, I read that. 280 more. 5 times as many first-party and third-party exclusives as Xbox.
Well, if you don't get Call of Duty in your PS Plus service, tough shit. I'm just saying, okay? Like, fucking, are you serious? Right? Like, where is the fucking argument? There is no argument. Right. Like, it is being it's a manufactured argument.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
That is what it is. It is grasping for whatever you possibly can and whatever you can possibly try to make up and whatever shit you can find on the floor, putting it together in a nice, pretty package and saying, here's my argument. Please take it. Please. I'm desperate right now because I don't want to lose money. Right? It's a fucking weak ass shit. It is. It is a weak argument. It is not going to ever hold up in the long run. And it's like, they should be laughed at. They honestly should be laughed at for the argument that they are presenting themselves to not let this deal go through. It is absolutely hysterical, and they should be embarrassed. They should be embarrassed as a company. Sony, yeah, I know you're trying to do right by your investors and your shareholders and your gamers and everything, but you should be fucking embarrassed right now at the argument you're putting forward with this. Mm-hmm. Talking about how desperate you are that a third-party franchise potentially going to another platform is going to kill your fucking business. You should be embarrassed right now. Because guess what? You have all these fucking franchises that have been exclusive on PlayStation for all these years, and other people have still been competing. Maybe not number one, but they've been there.
Right.
Xbox coming out strong right now. You don't like it. Tough shit. There's regulators' job is not to protect Sony. No. At the end of the day, it's going to come back to bite their ass if they keep on that stance, because there is no weight to the argument whatsoever. It is all an illusion. Sorry, Sony, you're going to lose this shit, and so is CMA. CMA is I think in phase 2 there's going to be some talk about potential concession stuff, just to try and make themselves worthy again, right? Mm-hmm. Try and prove their worth. Look at we did.
Forced Microsoft to give us something.
We, the CMA, we achieved greatness. We held Microsoft to the fire, and we got them to sign this concession agreement to make sure we protect PlayStation gamers everywhere from big tech. So we did our job, and we should be commended for it. I don't fucking know. It's just like I just don't get it, man. It's like,
yeah.
It's interesting though. It's fun to talk about.
It is, and that's why we cover it. Sony should be embarrassed. On top of that, Mav and Jaffe even came out and said this makes Sony look weak. He was laughing at them on camera. He was just like, "This is shit. This makes them look extremely weak." But they should be embarrassed too, Mav, that they spent all these years of dominance instead of expanding their library, instead of growing the diversity that they had. They closeted so many classic franchises and locked them up and threw away the key and went away from what made them one of the biggest makers of games, publishers of games forever, and decided to solely focus on one type of game primarily and just continue to milk that cow and then pay everybody else, all these third parties, to cover the rest of their library up. And that's all they did. They should be embarrassed that they chose that route after they spent $300 million on Gaikai and had the lead in subscription services. PS Now came out long before.
Yeah.
They could have been the trailblazers, but they decided not to be. They rested on their laurels. They looked at their treasure and said, we're good. We're just going to sit here and we're going to be good the same way we've been good now for a long time, and we're not going to do anything different. Guess what? That comes back to bite you. And now it is. As the industry changes, you guys aren't going to be the leader anymore. You guys aren't. You may still hold the console market. You still may hold the world share, which I still believe is possible, not counting Nintendo, obviously. You may still hold the world share, but you're going to be playing in a different ball game, and it's totally different. And that competitor that you like, they're going to be passing you by in so many other areas, making so much more money than you because you guys chose your path. And now you got to adjust. And like Microsoft said, this comes down to the fact that Sony does not want to compete. They don't want Microsoft to even have a shot at the number one spot in any way, shape, or form because they got too comfortable and they're not ready. They got fat. They're the heavyweight champion who sat back and got fat. And then all of a sudden he's got to defend his championship belt and he figures out that he's out of shape and isn't ready for the fight. That's what they are right now. And he's trying to put off that championship match. He's trying to put off going to that pay-per-view event by saying, I just can't right now. My back is injured. We gotta delay this. I'm not ready. So that's what it comes down to. And Sony should be embarrassed that they got caught.
George Foreman had a pretty good comeback there, Pong.
He did have a good comeback, but it took him a while, right?
Yeah.
It took him a while to come back, and he had to put the work in. Sony's going to have to put the work in. They don't want to. They don't want to get back in the training ring. They don't want to go start lifting weights again. They don't want to do any of that.
You know what
stuff.
they're going to do? They're going to bite people's ears instead.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
They're going to pull a Tyson and do that instead. Great conversation, Mav. Man, we were almost 3 hours in. Holy shit. I wanted to wrap up on one last fun one here, Mav, unless you got something else you want to jump into, but we can talk about this quickly. Phil Spencer back up to his old shelf tricks, Mav. Back up to his old shelf tricks.
Goody stuff.
Listen, if anybody had any questions about whether or not Phil is shelf real or just reading into it, listen. It's almost 100% at this point. Jima's deal is done. Like, everyone on that shelf has some sort of meaning at some time. So I'm getting internet connection.
Yeah, you bought it for like about 10 seconds there, but I think you're back.
Okay, I think I'm back to it. It disappeared. If anybody had any questions about Phil's shelf, this answers it once and for all. He took a picture in regards to and posted it to Twitter, and he made a post about Fallout's anniversary because they had sent Fallout Boys to all the studios within Microsoft in celebration. So he posted the Fallout Boy in front of his shelf, talking about congratulations to the Fallout franchise, Bethesda. And lo and behold, on the top shelf up there, inconspicuously turned towards the camera. If you actually look at the picture, the device is actually turned towards the camera to be more noticeable. There happened to be a little white box that kind of resembles a Series S up there, Matt. But if you look at it, it's definitely not
smaller than that.
It's a little smaller than that. It's definitely not a Series S. And of course, people picked up on it instantaneously. Tom Warren wrote an article saying, yes, this is it. It's Project Keystone, everybody. Xbox Twitter account almost immediately underneath Phil's picture said, boss, what did we tell you about posting old prototype models of tech on your shelves? So they pretty much confirmed it as well. This is Project Keystone. Shout out to Jez Gordon, who broke this story long ago. I
Yeah.
think it was like a year ago, somewhere in that neighborhood, that they were working on a cloud only device, a cloud stick, a cloud puck. It's been described many different ways, just like your Roku's, just like your Fire Sticks, just like your Google Chromecast. They were working on a device that you were going to be able to plug into your TV, and you were going to be able to stream, obviously through xCloud. And it seems like Mav, that Phil is hinting that they are closer than expected to announcing this. Nobody knew for sure. Jez last report, I think he said that they had gone back to the drawing board, that this had been through a lot of different iterations, and he was unsure when we would hear about this. But I got to assume, Mav, and maybe you're different than me, but I got to assume that Phil posting this picture means we're going to hear about this year. I don't think Phil would have done this if that wasn't the case. He knew what would happen as soon as he put this online, that the conversations would start up. So, Mav, your thoughts on Microsoft jumping in with a cloud-only device? Of course, we talked about this when Jez originally broke the deal, but now that we're here in 2022, we're coming up to the end of 2022, coming into 2023, with everything that's happened along the way here, we've got a better picture. We've got the family plan coming up here shortly too, as we know, for Game Pass. What's your thoughts on Microsoft jumping in with Project Keystone? The project name, we don't know what the real name is going to be yet, but with a cloud-only device that you can basically plug and play anywhere, on the go, anywhere there's a TV. What do you think, man?
I think that there's good chance this does get announced this year also. Now that we've seen it on a shelf, because that's telling of everything. Everything those shelves have foretold has come true so far, except for the Nintendo thing, right?
Yeah, the Switch.
Yeah.
The Switch, you're right. The Switch is the only one so far.
Kojima, check mark on that. I think the Series S was hidden in one of his backdrops before. He had other stuff on the other shelf that's was happened as well. But I think that him putting it there does mean it's potentially going to be announced sooner than later. Maybe the Game Awards potentially. I think PlayStation VR could potentially even be a Game Awards announcement. Hypothetically, who knows exactly. But before we leave, I want to talk about that $1,500 VR headset too. But
the Quest.
Yeah,
we can talk about
we'll
that.
talk about that after. But yeah,
yeah.
The streaming stick, I think, or device, is not really a stick. It's like a little mini box, Xbox, right? That you can easily take anywhere. I think it's a good idea because you're opening potential again of console gaming to. That's not native, right? But console type gaming, level of gaming to a mass audience that maybe not afford a PC, right? Can't afford a console, but you got internet. You know what I mean? You could maybe get this device and you have access to a very affordable ecosystem with Game Pass as well. I think you have potential to put it in a different places in the store, like a retail that would potentially get people to grab one, right? That would have not been in the market for a console before. Put it over there with the Chromecast and the Rokus and the Fire Cubes, in that little area here, and it's like an Xbox one. Oh, cool! So it does everything those does, but I can also play Xbox. That's awesome. I'm going to do that. Maybe one day you'll see Xbox app on those other devices as well. Who knows, right? But I do think that there's a good market for it. I don't think it's like going to be a massive explosion right away. I think it's going to be something that's going to grow over time. But the price point thing is a key, right? Is where they land on that. Yep. And then also, will it I think with how it looks, I think it's going to have a built-in Ethernet port as well, yep. Right? So make it, extra stable internet. If you have shaky Wi-Fi, obviously with the cloud type device, you want to have the best internet connection possible. I was listening to the show you were on earlier today with Archimedes as well, and he had some interesting theories regarding potential controller stuff that could be a thing. I that's very interesting to me. I would, if they did, and what Archimedes is talking about is potential kind of like a Stadia like controller where like your
Correct.
controller is also connected to the internet in a way,
Right.
right?
Right.
To help with the latency aspect. Um, if they were to do something like that, I would hope that the controller would also be able to be used as a regular controller, also, right? So I'd also hope the device would be able to be used with a regular Xbox controller,
Correct.
right? I feel like if you
Yeah.
segment that alone, that would be a mistake potentially.
Yeah.
So therefore, I don't know if that's how realistic that is for sure.
Right.
But it's an interesting idea for sure. However, I think if you were to release this, I think it needs to have 4K capability for streaming for like movies and all that kind of stuff. You need to have access to all the apps like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime, all these things that people usually buy streaming devices for. And then you have your dedicated, Xbox ecosystem in there. And with the interesting thing I want to add to this, Pong,
Yeah.
if remember Jez before alluded to the fact that they may be testing like being able to purchase games, or somebody did, as a rumor, right? Through
Through
so
xCloud.
through xCloud, or in your game library potentially being
also.
playable in xCloud.
Yes.
I feel like if you release a device like that, that is a must.
Mhm.
Because you're potentially releasing, you're just pretty much releasing another console, right? And if this console is like cloud only, I think it's obviously has native hardware on it, right? But I feel like you need to have the potential to be able to have the people that get used to playing in the cloud being able to purchase games, knowing that those games are going to be also playable in the cloud. Because I would think this device, you would have purchasable games in it, like a native Xbox store, then you launch the games in the cloud, right? But if you're buying games in the cloud and you're pushing that so much, you're buying games, then you can't play those games in the cloud, right? On the same device that see what I'm getting at? Like, so if you make the games playable on the device via the cloud, which is the device is only capable of doing potentially, then I think the game ownership aspect of that has to launch with that device. So that's the other aspect of this, which would benefit everybody.
Yep.
Right? Because I don't think you can release that device without having that in place.
Okay.
Because otherwise you have to have a subscription to take advantage of the device.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So you're selling a device in which you also have to have a $10 to $15 a month subscription to. I don't think that's a very successful thing that you're going to be able to push out there, right? But if you sell a device and say, oh, you have options of buying things, or you can get the subscription, right? Then you're going to open it up to more people, right? So I that's the other aspect I think has to be done before you launch this, and I think that's potentially what they could be waiting on.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I never thought of it that way, but I don't disagree with you now that you said it out loud. I'll be curious if this is a worldwide launch or if they start with certain territories first, because that was my point. Because this device, we know that people, it being xCloud only, are going to have up and down experiences, especially within the United States and parts of the EU, UK, where internet isn't the best at all. Like there's still people out here, as Steel always points out, with with 100 megabyte downloads, or uploads, I should say, or less, 30. I think the average, he says, is like the average right now is like 38 or some ridiculously low number. But where this is going to hit is the East, where they already have the infrastructure built in. They're all used to mobile gaming already. They do a lot of that's their forte. Again, that's why Switch sells the way it does. But also, for the fact is that once they've gotten to start to know Xbox over there. As Xbox, we've seen the popularity start to bubble up a little bit. It's certainly nowhere near domination, but more and more people are noticing. So when they go buy this device, a lot of them that's going to be their main device. To your point, Matt, they may not be console owners. They might own a Switch, but this is going to be a companion device because they just heard about Game Pass from a friend, or they saw Game Pass, or they saw Xbox at the store, and they all of a sudden can buy this device that they can just plug in their TV without buying a console. That all of a sudden they've got the same, same experience as what I'm saying as what they're used to over there because they've got great internet. They're normal. That's fine. That's great. But to your point, yeah, to have the ability to purchase games is going to be huge for them, not just having Game Pass as a subscription, but also being able to purchase and own games via xCloud would be a big part of that business model. And I think that that's something that they maybe behind the scenes they've been working on this whole time to get ready. We just saw KhAos ThEory was the first to notice it, but then Jez wrote an article on Windows Central too. More Xbox games are all of a sudden available via your web browser.
Yeah.
If you go type in certain games through Bing only, not through Google Chrome or any other ones, but if you search through Bing, some of the Xbox games are coming up with a button that says play now right through your browser. So there seems like there's a whole lot of back end expansion happening right now. So I think that would be big, Matt, to your point. But I think overall, this is the natural evolution as to everything that we've been hearing. Again, Xbox has not lied to anybody's face about the 2 billion, 3 billion market. They really do want to be everywhere. We saw that they just partnership with Logitech G Cloud, right? We know that the Samsung TVs, the new Samsung TVs have an app. They really do want to be everywhere they can be. And, Jez has had put out this week in a tweet, hey, if you're going to buy the G Cloud, hold off. There's a better device coming, and supposedly it's going to be announced the 15th. Now, I don't think it's Xbox specific, but I certainly think it could be another, obviously, since he's saying hold off on the G Cloud, that Xbox has got another partnership somewhere, and we're going to see another device on the 15th.
Yeah. It's already been two recently, that the Logitech G Cloud and the Razer device.
Yep, the Razer, and then we also had the Lenovo Chromebooks this week that are cloud. Right. So, which again,
huge push for cloud gaming right now.
Yeah. Cloud gaming is big right now. And Microsoft is obviously in the forefront. They want to be in the forefront. But I think this Project Keystone is the next evolution, Mav. And I like your points on all of that. The interesting thing that Boxenberger brought up too, besides the controller aspect, maybe more like a Stadia kind of device, is that price point. And he thinks that I've always said $100 with a controller, $100 with a controller, and maybe a free month of Game Pass or whatever the case may be. That's the impulse buy price point. Boxenberger doesn't think so. Boxenberger thinks that the impulse price point has to be like $70. Wow. If they come in that low, look, this thing, even if you can't buy games, even if you are required to have a subscription through Game Pass, could be a ridiculously hot seller. And I think it comes out this year. I think they announced it this year. And my idea on Boxenberger's channel was they announced this device at the same time as the family Game Pass plan. And I think that they promote that Project Keystone along with the family Game Pass because I think this is for the time being out the gate. The majority of people are already going to be Xbox owners, especially in the States, in the EU, in those areas. They're already going to be Xbox owners and they're going to want this thing for the other TVs in the house. And maybe they've been thinking about Christmas and how they got 2 kids. They both got their own TVs. How are we going to work all this out? This is going to be a lot of money if I go out and buy even Series S's. Even if they go on sale, it's still going to be a lot of money for Christmas. Things are tight right now. You introduce this device where all of a sudden parents can go, oh my God, I can buy 2 of these things for less than the price of a Series S. I can hook them up to my kids' TVs. We can all have the family Game Pass subscription for $25 a month. My God, this is a huge win. Like, this is going to be one of those, yeah, we're buying it. We're buying it. That's it. That's how we're going to do it. I think that's where you're going to see a lot here, like I said, in the US, in the EU, in the West. Your initial buyers are going to be already Xbox owners. Now, there's going to be some PlayStation owners who may try it, who may have great internet that they say, hey, I'm going to be able to play Starfield next year. I'm going to be able to play Redfall next year. I'm going to play Motorsport next year. If I just buy this cloud device, yeah, let's do it. Let's try it. Why not? Why not try it? And so I think that's where the rest of them are going to come from. But I think announcing this with the family Game Pass would be awesome. Now, if they can do what you're saying, Mav, and at the same time announce that you can purchase games through xCloud on top of that, boy, man, that would be a huge, huge deal. I'm trying to think of what show. I think they do it before Black Friday. I think they try to get this device out before shopping season. So I think we hear about it within the next few weeks, personally. So I don't think Jez was alluding to anything Xbox on the 15th, but I got to imagine we're going to hear something soon out of this thing. I don't know, but I think it's great.
Isn't Razer's thing supposed to be on the 15th where the Razer has like their official like show?
I don't know if that's the case, but that was already announced, so I don't think Jez would have said what he said.
They had Razer had done a little tease of it, and then but as more coming later, right? But that raise that already had been announced. So again, you're right. I don't know why Jez would have said that because we already knew about it.
He would have already said it like, hey, this is happening. So again, he answered my question. That's how everybody got the 15th date, is because I asked him, I said, are you talking about the, because at first I thought it was the Lenovo, cloud books or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, what are you talking? And he said, just, you'll see it on the 15th. You'll see it on the 15th. So, it's a Saturday. There's really no big shows going on this weekend. I don't know why it's going to be announced on the 15th, but I'm super curious about this thing. But I just think it's overall Project Keystone is going to be great.
RazorCon 2022 is Saturday, October 15th.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so maybe there is another device that they're got another one in the works.
Either that, or it has something to do with like maybe there's more than one version of that same device or something. Yeah, who knows? Or maybe just is attached to that device. But yeah, RazorCon is on the 15th.
Okay. Well, everybody be looking for the 15th because for another device out there that's going to be cloud. Mav, you want to talk about Meta Quest Pro?
Yeah, I want to add. I'm on the $100 price point on that thing. So
yeah. Sorry,
I think 70 would be like for what the device just looks like.
Yeah. And
adding a controller to it, and then potentially doing a month of Game Pass or 3 months, as some people said, it'd be too low. I don't want to set myself up for a disappointment with that. Like I'm thinking like $100 is like the sweet spot, and that's like I'm still questioning if they would be getting to that point if you're including a controller with it, right? So 125 could be possible, also a 120, but I'm hoping for 99, because if they don't hit the 99, then it's a mistake, right?
Yes. And like I said, a Boxing Burger, it depends what, like you said, like me, I'm expecting all the apps to be in there. I think a stripped out version that was just pure Xbox, that's all you could do was cloud stream, console stream, and access Game Pass. I think if they stripped it out and there was no other apps, which to me wouldn't make sense.
You could go lower that.
You could go lower than that, right? But if you add the apps in there, if you actually want to replace a Fire Stick, if you want to replace a Roku, that people are still using as that alternative, like everybody goes to the store and says, oh, well, it's got Amazon on there. Oh, it's got YouTube on there. Oh, cool. It's got all this stuff on there. But I also can access Game Pass and I can stream games through here. Cool. That makes more sense to me.
And like I was talking about the other day, like I bought I got the Spectrum, like not T-Mobile. So the T-Mobile like 5G in-home thing for a secondary internet connection for the house, right? Yeah. And they sent me a free Chromecast.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yep. So like Xbox has also been partnering with Verizon a lot, right? So if you get the price point right on this thing, you could give those away for free to anybody that signs up for that like Verizon 5G internet connection, right? Because I also have the same thing. So I imagine going to Verizon, hey, I'm going to get 5G for my house, Wi-Fi. Here's this Xbox streaming device, free right now. We're offering it as a bundle, and you take that home, plug it in. Oh, cool. What's that? You have somebody potentially that never would have bought into the Xbox ecosystem before. Correct. They're going after not just. I think a lot of gamers get caught up with like, well, but the Xbox gamers don't like this, or Xbox gamers don't do this. But they're not just trying to sell to the people that already invested in the ecosystem. They're trying to appeal to everybody, right? They're trying to grow the brand. They're trying to invite new people in, get more people to play games, right? And all that kind of stuff. So I think there's potentials there with a device as low cost as it is to be able to do some interesting deals with companies.
Agree with you. Great point, Mav. Great point. I think that would be awesome for them to do something like that, especially with Verizon, where they do seem to be partnering quite closely.
Yeah, which also the Razer thing has a partnership with Verizon and Microsoft also.
That is correct. Man, future is bright, man. We're growing. Meta. So we got some Meta news this week. Hey, everybody's favorite company, Meta, aka Facebook, or formerly known as Facebook, now Meta. Lizard Man Zuckerberg running the ship over there. But Meta and Microsoft partnered this week, and which is a huge deal. I think people are underselling what this means when two of the most powerful companies come together and make a deal like this. And obviously, Meta this week announced the Meta Quest 2 and the Meta
Quest Pro. I think
Pro,
is what they're calling
Pro was the big announcement, but they also are coming out with the other versions. soon as well. But MetaQuest Pro was the big one that's going to be announced. It has been announced now. But they teamed up with Microsoft. This is a Microsoft deal, not just an Xbox deal. They're bringing like Teams in to your MetaQuest Pro, so you're going to be able to work at the office and all that kind of stuff. They're going to bring in a bunch of the Microsoft Office apps are going to be available within MetaQuest Pro and the other MetaQuests that come out, but also Game Pass is going to be a part of MetaQuest, and you're going to be able to play on a screen through your VR goggles. Again, huge deal, being everywhere, as we were just talking about, man, getting everywhere in front of more people. Why not do this? But Mav's point, MetaQuest Pro was announced. Now, this is the top of the line VR from Meta. Obviously, that's why they put the Pro behind it. If you didn't know that, when we use Pro, it's the same thing as saying premium, right? So Pro, and it came in at a price point, Mav, of $1,499.99. $1,500 to round up 1 cent. Mav, what do you got to say about the MetaQuest Pro, and maybe even some thoughts on Microsoft making this deal with them as well?
Yeah, I think that is definitely an enthusiast device, right? It does have its advantages. You know, you're not tethered to anything, obviously, with the MetaQuest, and this seems like it's really high tech. People were pointing out that you can do AR with it also, as opposed to just VR, which is interesting as well. But man, $1,500, dude. That's the same price as like the 4090 that was just announced as well. Like, oh, freaking A, gaming's getting an expensive hobby if you're a hardcore enthusiast and you really want to take advantage of all this stuff. I don't think it has like massive sales potential for that price point, but I'm glad they're still doing it. Go all out. Eventually, maybe it'll drop in price, but to push VR forward, like we talked about before, you know, going balls to the wall on a high end version. I wonder what the low end version costs. Did they announce that yet?
They have not announced them. They supposedly, I think Zuckerberg was quoted as saying between 300 and 500.
Okay, so cool. I'm glad something like that exists, because you know it's going to be able to people be able to live out their VR fantasies and all these kind of ways, and like, oh, what's the next level? You know what I mean? You get to see that, and you're not going to be tethered to shit. You know, it's like it'll be pretty incredible. I will not be in the market for that though. That's for sure. But maybe one day they will release a device that would be interesting for me. I'm curious what that means for the PSVR price point. Obviously, this is a different animal altogether. This is like insane. But referring back to the Xbox VR, the Xbox app, this is what I thought they should do all along. People were always saying, well, Xbox needs to release their VR headset. Xbox isn't getting to VR, you know, all this stuff. Phil said they were going to do VR, and you know, then they were experimenting with the HoloLens and all that kind of stuff and everything, right? Then the HoloLens guy got caught whacking off at work, and like all these things, right? It's interesting, you know, that was always a big talking point, but for me, it made most sense for them just to release apps on other third-party devices, because you already have devices that have market share are really pushing this forward, and they're all third-party companies, right?
Right.
Like you have Meta, you have like HTC, you have all these different things, right? Like, put your apps there, and you all of a sudden are in front of the largest VR crowd there is,
right?
Currently,
correct.
Instead of trying to be a small part of this already niche market, right? So. Yep. Put your app on there, and you're all of a sudden on the biggest player in the market, and you're not having to experiment with all this hardware stuff. And guess what? Meta is all for it, because it makes their device stronger, because it gives more of an offering, because they're selling it as a platform, obviously with storefronts and everything like that in there as well. But it just makes sense, man. What I'm curious about is this is going to be like, okay, let's say you play Skyrim through that, right? Will it load up the VR version? Right? Or is it the Game Pass console version?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So, because one way, what I would anticipate it in its infancy, at least, is it's going to be like just playing the games on a theater screen.
Yeah, that's what they said.
You know,
the 2D screen. Yep.
So, but it'd be interesting if they can do, okay, well, these games that have VR versions, you can boot those up, and those are all of a sudden added into the Game Pass Ultimate value with like Game Pass Ultimate VR, because there's a lot of people say that Microsoft doesn't do VR, but they have a lot of actual VR games. Right? Minecraft is in VR.
Studios, yeah, they got VR.
Minecraft's VR. You got Skyrim is in VR. Wasn't there? there's a few other VR big games that they have that are pretty popular, and some of the biggest, uh, most exciting things that have been in VR so far. But I'm curious if they could open that up because they have that. If this is just a stepping stone, right? Then they all of a sudden add VR games into that as the market grows. Now all of a sudden maybe you do a deal for like Half-Life Alex in Game Pass on VR or something
Hmm.
like that, right? So this is just a
Yeah.
start, I think.
Yeah, no, and you know, we know they've been talking to Gabe, Uncle Gabe over at
Yeah.
Valve, and we know that they've been talking about getting Game Pass on Steam Deck, and obviously another step would be get Game Pass into Oculus. You know, and again, all of that does lead to exactly what you were saying, Matt. Why do I know people were disappointed when Xbox said they weren't going to jump into VR after Phil said they were, right? I know people were disappointed. But why do all that R&D in a niche market? I'm all for these companies doing it. That's why I give Sony props for doing it, even though I think it does take away
Yeah.
from the PlayStation side of things since they're struggling so bad because Call of Duty is going to crush them. If they lose it, my God, then why the
Yeah.
hell are you investing in VR, right? So, but I'm happy they're doing it because it's going to push the medium forward. But why not as Microsoft? You're a software company. You're not known for your hardware. You've done hardware. You've got great line in the Surface hardware. You've tried phones. You've done all these different things. But at the end of the day, for a niche market like that, why not sit back and let these other companies do the legwork?
Yeah.
And you get your name out there. And now you've got these developers who, like you said, Matt, do have some experience in VR. You can expand that. Maybe someday Playground makes a Horizon VR version, or Turn 10 makes a VR version for motorsport down the road. And all of a sudden you add that to the library. Now people get to know Xbox also with VR games. And then when that market finally grows to mass appeal and VR finally takes hold at some point, where that's 5 years, 20 years down the road, and VR is now side by side with regular viewing as a way that you experience games, then you turn it on. By that point, you're making so much money out of Xbox, it's
Hmm.
not even funny. Then you turn on the R&D back on, and all of a sudden you come out with your own device. Maybe
Yeah.
you do it then, or maybe you never do. Maybe you're just a VR publisher because you just make so much money off your VR games. But I just think it's a nice way, like you said, a stepping stone towards that. Get your name out there even more. Now that people have Quest, they're going to see, even if they don't jump into the ecosystem, they're going to see Xbox and they're going to see Game Pass. Your name gets to be more well known. People start looking into Game Pass more. The information starts spreading out more. And it just becomes normal for people to see that on their VR devices that they can access Game Pass. It might not be day one, but maybe down the road they're bored with their
Yeah.
VR games and they say, "Let me check out Game Pass. I play a couple of regular Xbox games. Why not? Let's do this. $10. I got access for 400 games for 30 days. Let's do it. Let's go check it out." And I think that's really what Microsoft is going for here. And again, this is a Microsoft deal, but I don't undersell this deal, what that means towards the future. Who knows? But
Hmm.
I really do see this as a partnership that could be long lasting. And then they make all these other deals with all these other third parties, and it just grows from there. It's a great, great stepping stone. Love that they did this.
The other aspect of this Pong is doing it this way takes the pressure away from being able
Yeah,
to produce enough first party content to support having your own
correct.
device. Because if
Correct.
I remember those days, right, when with Xbox pushing Connect, and all of a sudden all the Lionheads making Connect games, Rare's
Yep.
making Connect games, all these guys,
Spread yourself too thin.
all these guys making Connect games, and
Yep.
guess what? It came at the sacrifice of other games, right? And
Yep.
a lot of those games never saw the time of day or didn't get played
Right.
very much, or only by a niche small market. And guess what? A lot of studios got closed, right? And things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see that
Correct.
again, right? So
Nope.
if you have a first party device, that comes with a lot of pressure with making sure you have the development studios and development time and investment into those games to support owning a Xbox device, right? So where they got that now in spades with console gaming and with the cloud and what everything they're doing there, adding a whole nother level that you're trying to have another device to support is not
Yep.
something I really want to see Xbox doing. And this way, they can still do VR stuff, which they are, but you can do it when it makes sense and add to the list and over time and grow that more slowly and stuff, right? So
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
I would
And
hate for fucking Coalition to be making exclusively VR
well,
stuff,
yeah,
you
no,
know?
no, that's what I said. But down the road, maybe you grow so big that you
Right.
break off small teams. Like I said, Turn
Hmm.
10's running Forza Motorsport as a games as a service. They break away a small team and all of a sudden they start up a VR version of
Yeah,
Motorsport
could do that for sure.
and they throw it out there, right? I mean, again, that's the way you can do this. Also should make mention that Meta, as they announced the the Meta Quest Pro, they also announced that they had purchased 3 VR dev teams as well. So Meta is definitely moving into that space. They picked up Camouflage, Twisted Pixel, and Armature Studios. Makers of games like Iron Man VR. What else did they do here? They also did what else they do? Oh, Armature is the ones that did the Resident Evil 4 VR
cool.
mode for Quest. So Meta's making moves in the gaming industry. Whole different sector, but they're making moves in the gaming industry as well. So we'll see what comes of that.
Yeah.
But that was also interesting. So, wow, Mav, we covered a lot, brother.
Yes, we did. And it was awesome.
It was awesome getting to chat with you. Oh, man. 3.5 hours. Chat, thank you all for being here. You guys were amazing. We stayed at like 100 for a very long time. Love you all. Appreciate every single one of you, whether you jumped in late, whether you started at the beginning, whether you listened for 5 minutes, whether you listened for 3.5 hours. Nothing but respect. And if you're listening to us in the future on an audio platform or rewatching it on YouTube, listen, you all, nothing but the best. This is the best community ever. Fun Speculation is building a great one here, and you all are part of it. And we thank you all for being here tonight for PM in the PM. Mav, let's get everybody out of here, man. I gotta go eat too. Jeez,
Yeah.
I gotta go to bed. I hate eating this late when I gotta go to bed. What do you got coming up? Xbox Ultimate tomorrow night. What else you got going on, bro?
Yeah, we're gonna introduce a new segment on Xbox Ultimate tomorrow night, Pong.
I didn't know about this.
We had so much fun last week with our celebrity deathmatch stuff.
Are we doing $1 billion game ideas? Is that what
we're gonna have end of the show on Ultimates from now on. This was actually Kate's idea.
Okay.
We're gonna have Ultimate BS. We're gonna take one random topic, just like something, and then we're just gonna like go at it. So
don't we do that for the whole entire show?
Well, but pretty much. But this is gonna be like not related to necessarily like the current news and stuff like that. Right?
Okay, so we're just gonna come up with a random topic.
Well,
it's gonna be gaming.
Yeah, mostly gaming oriented, but maybe sometimes not. Who knows?
Okay.
It'll be our chance to let loose. We had a blast.
Are you gonna have this pre-planned, or we're gonna talk about it?
I got an idea for tomorrow.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Cool.
So I think
Celebrity Deathmatch talk was awesome. Def Jam talk. Jeff Dam.
Yeah, I had a blast with that. We'll keep with because on Ultimate we keep it so loose and it goes sideways sometimes, and it's. But like I feel like that's one of the. I want to make sure that's like reflected with that. I want to like push that because like it's what makes that show unique to everything else we do, right? For sure. So. Ultimate BS coming to Xbox Ultimate podcast tomorrow night. So we'll probably end the show with Ultimate BS every week. So 9 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, Xbox Ultimate podcast. Be there. Let's see. Mondays, 10 p.m. Eastern, we got Fun Speculation podcast. And then back here every week for Thursday, PM in the PM, 7 p.m. Eastern with the best host on Fun Speculation, Pong Soul. And then we got lots of game streams and stuff. Been trying to do some different stuff. We watched some game trailers last night on stream, and then just kind of played and dilly dallied and stuff like that. But I appreciate everybody in the chat. You guys rock. Pong Soul is right. You guys are amazing. I freaking love this community. You have no idea how much it means to me. Speaking of that, Vik The CLiCK with a $2 super chat. It's an amazing episode. Appreciate you, Vic. You're a real one, bro. 100%, man. Appreciate you and everybody else as well. Lots of awesome comments in the chat tonight, and it was flying.
Yeah,
it was absolutely flying. Pong Soul, what do you got coming up, bro?
Make sure everybody in the chat too hits Kaitlin up and tells her how awesome her thumbnail is. By the way, for this show.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It was awesome. I forgot to mention it in my intro, but the thumbnail is absolutely freaking amazing. So, episode 46 of PM in the PM in the books. Again, thank you all for being here. Listen, I had an extra show today, World of Gaming over on Boxenberger's channel. So if you didn't catch that, go check it out. Always a great time. Dutch had to leave a little bit early because he's cat sitting and the cat was giving him problems, but that's okay. We still had a great time. I haven't been on a podcast with Boxenberger forever. It was so much fun. Love that dude and love Dutch, obviously, part of the Midweeks Mix-Up Collective. And then I had an extra show with Noof on Tuesday night over at Gaming After Dark. Obviously, fun to get back on there. Noof's back. having a good time. So that was another episode you could check out. But I will be on Xbox Ultimate tomorrow night at some point. So be there, like Mav said. Now we got an actual official BS spot for that show. So this is going to be interesting. But we had, if you guys didn't catch the Celebrity Death Match or Def Jam comedy or Def
No,
Jam comedy,
Jeff
geez.
Dam. Remember?
Jeff Dam, yeah, Def Jam comeback where we were giving NetherRealm, Ed Boon and his crew absolutely billion-dollar idea. Listen, Celebrity Deathmatch coming back by NetherRealm would be
you could launch an exclusive console and only have that game and it would still be the number one in the market.
People would buy it nonstop. Oh my God, what a great idea. Anyways, you'll catch us there 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 o'clock Central. And then speaking of Midweek Mix-Up Collective, hey, listen, Living Split Screen every Saturday morning. We are a part of that crew, but you got to join me and Steel because we didn't get to do last week's show. We tried. Steele's internet was just not cooperating in any way, but he's redone everything. He did a test stream, I think yesterday, everything working good. So we are back this Saturday. So please join us. I know how easy it is to forget shows if they miss a week or two, but we will be back. Living Split Screen, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central Time, 3 p.m. BST time. You better believe that Steele and I are going to have a lot to talk about Saturday morning now that we had a whole week missed. My God, we got a lot to talk about. So be there. Otherwise, Saturday night, the Shop Podcast, PTK, Blam's channel, Fuzzy Belvedere, myself. I don't think a guest has been announced this week yet. We might have one, might not. Normally we do, but be there. The best way to end your Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 o'clock Central Time, PTK, Blam's channel, the Shop Podcast. Otherwise, Factor Podcast. I'm going to try to make it to one of these coming up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it this week, but we'll see. You guys check out Mr. Boom. Said he already put out an announcement. Hey, by the way, P.S. Shout out to Boom and his entire family. For those of you who don't know, he lost his mom yesterday. So again, give him a shout out if you haven't already. The community's been freaking amazing reaching out to him, but nothing but blessings and love to him and the entire family over there. But he did put out a post saying he will be back next week on Tuesday for Xbox Factor. So Tuesday, 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 o'clock Central Time, be there. And then Thursday, I'll be right back here. Otherwise, it's the golden age of gaming, people. If you can't tell, my God, I don't know what else to show you right now. Gaming is ridiculous. News, games, everything is fun right now. Get out there, have a great rest of your week on Friday, and have a great weekend. Play what you love what you play, and I'm going to talk to you all real soon. Mav, get us the heck out of here, brother.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. Bye-bye.